and then now, and well, at that point, to me, the issue
Well,
is
sure.
not with
Use it using
security.
the. Let's say there's a cat book, catbook.com. I'm there. I
Okay.
guess we're gonna. Well, hopefully Steve will go live. We could start talking about this, unless he does a 600-minute intermission.
What if? But wait,
Finally, I
if you
can
do that,
host
doesn't
him.
that mean that anybody could just ban you for if you wanted to do the whole Marvel thing?
You already said that joke in chat, and it was there now.
Destiny, what's the Marvel thing?
He's
I don't
trolling.
know.
Fuck off.
Well, I addressed the hypothetical. Kafka.
I don't know what the Marvel
What if somebody
hypothetical is.
posted all of the Marvel stuff now?
I'm trying.
And does that get
that's not what
section
we're talking
230
about.
if it's a cat website now? Because there's no discretion?
That is the DMCA. We're talking about Section 230 here. There are different laws.
Section 230. It's about dentists.
Okay, yeah, I get it. So what exactly is it that you want to change? It sounds like you just want better protection for people. Like you're okay. Like okay, if you want to have Section 230 protection, you need to have a full appeal process. Is that accurate?
I think that's part of it. I think it's to me. I think it's that these platforms need to have
Well, what's the other
some
part
level
that I'm
of
missing?
liability. Well, either you have the appeal process and you enjoy some protections, or you do not have that and you retain discretion in these things and the ability to ban people, and then now
Okay,
you
sure.
have to
Okay,
accept
fine.
the
Appeal
liability.
process. Who does the appeal process?
You can do it through the actual website itself. And if
Okay,
you feel
so
like the
Twitter
appeal
already
process
has that.
doesn't go well, okay. And if you feel like the appeal process is not being properly administered, you can challenge that appeals process. You could do it through different types of administrative courts and things like that.
Well, you already can sue someone for this type of stuff, but you're
For
saying that you.
banning? For
Yeah,
an
people
unfair
sue
banning under a
people
terms of
sue
service?
YouTube constantly for getting banned. Yeah.
Okay, and are they almost all thrown out because the terms and service say they have discretion to do that?
Yeah, I would say most of them are thrown out because of that.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I'm saying that is the part that we need to get rid of, and saying, well, we can't just hide behind this idea that, well, I just retain discretion, so I can just choose whatever I want. There would have to be
Okay.
some specific standard.
So let's use the example of Twitter. What type of
Okay.
things do you think should not be allowed to go and happen on Twitter?
I don't think that. I think that for Twitter, to me it would be a thing of they retain discretion to ban whoever they want without like the clear outlines of what's bannable and what's not. I don't think that should be allowed under Section 230. While
When you say
also
clear outline,
allowing
what
them
about what about if they put in things? So you're saying that you want to have no. It sounds like to me, unless I'm misunderstanding this, that in the rules of a website, that it has to be explicit, meaning that there can't be something in there saying, do not break our rules. Our rules are be kind to each other. Do not post content that is designed to harass or humiliate other people. So that could be used in a lot of ways, right? I could use that broadly or not broadly, right? So the idea is if you report me and you could say, well, Dan's harassing Hassan, so he should get banned. And I could say that's not true. I'm just exercising my right to criticize him. Depending on the leanings of the staff, that could either be something that could absolutely go through or not, right? So how does your system solve that when it's looking at each ban in a vacuum? Because the most you can just say, no, why didn't you ban that guy? Because that's not really in there, right?
This is actually a really good point. This is why, like, for workplace stuff, you can fire people based on their race and their gender and everything, because if the government were to ever investigate, you can always just say, oh, I just fired that guy because I didn't like him. And there's actually no equal protections for basically any part of the U.S. ever, because you can always say, like, oh, well, I just didn't like that guy.
Well, he's being facetious. Destiny is bringing up a concept that's pretty useful here. So, essentially what would happen in that case is I would say, I think I was unfairly banned. They'd say, well, here's the legitimate reason for why you were banned. And I would say, I think that's pretextual. That's a pretextual reason. And I can show that because here's other people that did things that are similar to me that didn't get banned. Here's people that got banned for doing things that were similar to me, but you're saying, but you don't have that same pretextual reason. And so you could have it where you say, like, look, you guys are claiming this is your reason for banning me, but I can show with evidence that that isn't applicable as I can see it with other users. And so because of that, you guys are clearly applying this inconsistently, and therefore you are retaining discretion. You are retaining discretion, therefore you can be held liable for the speech on your platform.
The problem
And
is what you're saying
avoid
is
Section
I'm not
230
sure
protections.
is possible to implement because there's always discretion that's used on these types of things. There's always nuance with every
Sure.
element of this, even court cases. Like, because what you're saying is like, hey, how come this white guy got 5 years for shoplifting and I got 10? And it's not like the guy who got 10 gets his taken down to 5. So even using your system isn't even in place for criminal law. So why would you expect it to even work remotely
to make
in
that
civil law?
equivalent, this would be like saying that means we can't like sentence anybody for shoplifting ever. That would be the equivalent of what you're saying. You're saying you can never enforce any of this ever because it's hard, and apparently courts are literally unable to determine any question of fact ever. That's what your argument is.
Dan, you're contending with the fact issues here, which if there are fact issues such that it's hard to determine those things, it goes to a jury, right? But you're generally going to have these buckets and these silos where you can say, okay, this fits into generally this level of discretion that we're not okay with. This one fits into this level of discretion.
I'm going to push
which we are
back on
okay
this
with.
because I know that this is already the case. If you can show
Okay.
a pattern of a website breaking the law when it comes to existing laws we have in place, like Destiny brought up, like for instance, discriminating against black people, that if you can do that, like for instance, if you could show a pattern of YouTube banning accounts only of black creators, and you're able to do that, that it would survive the motion to dismiss if you had evidence of that being the case. That because that is illegal already. Your businesses, as we saw with the what was the name of that stupid fucking case? They are not allowed to discriminate. A business, a commerce, someone doing commerce is not allowed to discriminate based on certain protected classes. So that's already the case. So I don't think your example in that front would work. It's just that when people typically bring this, they say, I got banned because I was black. And they say, well, no, you got banned because of this YouTube video where you said you wanted to mow down dipshit protesters. And that's the end of it. So we already have, you already still have to follow the law on this. It just sounds like you want. Well, I don't know. I'm not exactly following because there is already laws that protect people. It's just people don't meet the burden almost always to do it.
Well, I'm basically saying I want to, one, lower the burden, and two, I want to tie platform liability to it. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, lower the burden though. How specifically?
By saying that we need to hold platforms accountable to the point where if they're going to implement a terms of service, it must be applied consistently and clearly in a way that the people interacting with it know how it's going to be implemented and can expect it to be implemented in a specific way. And if it is not implemented in the way that it is stated and expected, they have a recourse to turn around and say they are not doing that. And the punishment to the platform is not just, oh, we're going to reinstate this person. It's that platform loses its liability protections for the content that's being put out on that platform. The threat is not you've got to let a person back onto your platform you don't like. The threat is you are now liable for the speech on your platform. So you better follow your terms of service.
I understand that. Write a rule in your terms of service disallowing spam for me.
I would not do it that way. That's what I was trying to get to earlier. I would address spam by saying I don't think people should be allowed to be anonymous on the internet.
Okay, so now we're getting to the real crux of the issue and why.
Wait, why would it be hard to ban spam?
Well, write a terms of service rule that I can't negotiate out of.
Well,
for spam.
You can't have, if you have an account on a website, over 50% of its posts can't be used for promoting commercial products or whatever.
No worries. I'm not doing that. Half of my posts are talking about Kim Kardashian. The other half are about Viagra.
Then if half your posts are talking about Kim Kardashian, then you would be fine. You just survived the rule by not breaking the rule. Congratulations, I guess. I don't know what you...
That is the most retarded thing that Steve has ever said, ever. So every spam bot has to do is just make 2 posts for every spam message. One that's a spam, and the second one is just some random bullshit with a bunch of letters, and that's okay?
It's almost like you're describing the reality that we live in today. Yeah, how do you think a lot of spam bots survive? They do it by fostering fake engagement on their accounts. Yes.
First off, they don't survive. If they do survive, they survive until they get banned, until they're able to evade detections and get banned.
Yeah, but one of the ways
would be a
they
legal
evade
foundation where they
detections-
can't ban them.
One of the ways that they evade detections is by generating artificial posts that make it look like they're real people.
Sure, that is a way that they do it, but you were like, so if someone wants to come on and hawk Viagra, okay, in this case, I think that a platform should be able to look at this and be like, oh, this guy's a spammer, and just ban them, right? But under the circumstances of what we're talking about now is that platform would have to instead be like, well, shit, half of their posts are literally a link to an online pharmacy. That's true, but the other half are fucking random letters. Shit.
Well, what do you want to ban?
I'm asking you the rule that you would do to ban spam.
I said banning spam. You're making it sound like you want to ban like advertising of like other products or something. I don't know what is the rule you're looking for?
The issue, and I think a thing that a lot of people don't think about when it comes to Section 230, and the reason it is why it is and why it is so broad, is that because trying to restrict speech is incredibly difficult in a way that would not be based on the views of the platform owner. It's hard to do. It's incredibly hard to do. And spam is the best example where you can really show like how fucking difficult it is to try and even do that. Because, Kafka says he wants a system where if you get banned... What part was
difficult? I don't understand what part was difficult. What are you defining as spam?
Okay, so Kafka's rule... Well, first, we all know what spam is, right?
No, I don't know right now. I'm not sure.
Okay, buy Viagra here. viagraonline.vx.cr.ru.
That doesn't mean anything to me. When I promote Polymarket, is that spam? I don't know what you're saying is spam. Because if half a person's posts are talking about Kim Kardashian, another half are like, I think you should buy Viagra or whatever. What are you defining as spam?
I can pull up the definition of spam, but it would be essentially unwanted, typically low quality commercial content that is unsolicited. I think would be the case of what spam would be.
I don't understand. Every post on social media is unsolicited.
Do not you're doing like prescriptive, descriptive things.
I'm not doing a prescriptive, descriptive thing.
What is a spam email?
My assumption for spam were like literally bot accounts that are created to mass advertise for some bullshit. Not a person who posts authentic shit and then also advertises or whatever on their account.
Okay, sure. What's spam email?
Generally, if like mailing bots that are just trying to sell you commercial things, also in an area where it's unwelcome.
Okay, sure. So on Twitter, what would be considered like spam tweets, for instance?
Generally, accounts that are trying to pass off as authentic promotions for commercial things.
Sure, like people trying to get you to like do crypto scams or something like that. Like, hey,
sure, or even
did you know that you can double your money by going here?
I could never fuck my wife, but now this Viagra at viagra.vrx.com or whatever.
Yeah, like the crypto thing is a great example, right? So what about if all my account does all day is tweet about crypto, and half of the tweets are very obvious, directing people to go to a website where they're going to get scammed. Like they're going to, I'm like building up this account and I'm talking on here, but I am scamming people constantly. Like I'm saying, hey man, if you go here, you're going to triple your fucking money. And it's a scam website. Like if you deposit your money, I'm going to steal it.
Well, I feel like that would be covered under a rule of don't link to scams.
What is a scam or a spam? And if you link to a scam,
you just
do you
said
get
scam
banned?
website, so you clearly have a working definition for what is a scam website. One where you just go and the goal is to literally defraud you out of money? That sounds like a scam to me.
Okay, how much do I have to link to it or not link to it?
Well, for scam websites, my guess would be it would be zero tolerance. If you link to it, you're going to be actioned. Why would you allow anybody to link to it at all?
Okay, so if you link to a website and it turns out that website was a scam or had malware on it that turned it to a scam after you linked it, it's okay to ban your account?
Or suspend it, sure.
Okay, that seems... Well, first off, that already I'm okay with banning accounts for any reason at all. I think it's completely up to the platform. I'm just saying here that I think that it's very difficult to write a...
How is that difficult? How is what I just said difficult? Hold on. Are you saying that if you link to a site and it ends up being a scam website, the person's account shouldn't be actioned?
Yeah, sure. Who determines if it's a scam?
You would have a definition for a scam, I guess, in your terms of service, but it would be something with the intent to defraud somebody or something that's misleading.
Who determines it the fraud?
Never mind. Actually, it's impossible. Holy shit! You just undid all.
Hey, you're
US
being
law
bad faith. I'm trying to be good faith here.
You're just
you
endlessly
can't do this
torturing
because
every single definition. How do you determine what a murder
this is?
Well, when the bullet goes into the body, the bullet doesn't actually kill them. It's actually the lack of blood flow. Well, it's not actually lack of blood flow. It's lack of deoxygenation to the brain. Like you're just endlessly torturing every single word. All of this stuff is settled. All of this stuff happens in court every single day.
Demanding an actual literal level of definition in the terms of service, in that if you do not have that you could lose your free speech protection, or not your liability protection. And I'm saying, okay, help me write what these rules would be. And you're like, well, Dan, you can't expect it to be specific. We just say no spam allowed. And the problem with that rule is that's something that Kafka has just said you can't have. You can't say no spam is allowed.
Why?
That's what he said. Yeah, why, Kafka? Why can't you just do that?
I mean, you possibly could, but it seems like you would have, if you just write it that way, it would be very clearly leaving too much discretion with the platform holder. That's why I wouldn't. I mean, like I'm not.
Well, you would have to
also
have
a
like
person
the
that
spam would have to be clearly defined, right? For sure.
Yeah,
Because you can't say like
you
no
would, like,
spam
if you
allowed,
really
and for
wanted
some
to do
reason
that.
every single crypto scam is allowed up, but every single link to Facebook is banned, right? Under the spam rule. Then obviously somebody would challenge you for that,
Right.
which they should, and that would be good. That's good. That would be the rules working as intended.
I'm
if
just
somebody
saying
were
to
crack
write
down on you.
one rule then, Kafka. You write the spam rule for me, and I'll break it instantly in a way that you can't do anything.
Well, again,
What is
if I was
Twitter's
gonna try
spam
to-
rule?
If I was going to try to fix spam with legislation, it would not be via Section 230. It would be by outlawing.
It is
like,
still
anonymity on the
speech.
internet. Well, yeah, but if you're not an anonymous, if you're a non-anonymous person, I think that it significantly reduces your ability to use spam on the internet or to
Okay,
implement spam
so
on the internet.
for
If I had to write a
wait,
rule, here. Let's just do.
Well, here, real
Go ahead.
quick. X has this right here. You may not use X's services in a manner intended to artificially amplify or suppress information or engage in behavior that manipulates or disrupts people's experience on X. So if you're advertising
Yeah,
for a thing,
Kafka
they
would
have
not
a
be
thing.
happy with that.
If you're,
He wouldn't be happy with
I
that.
don't care. I don't care how you've tortured Kafka's definitions and to try to make some retarded fucking argument.
Ask him then. Fine.
No, I'm
Are
not.
you
No,
happy
I'm
with that
asking you. I'm
rule?
asking you. What's wrong with that rule? If on X,
Nothing.
if
I think
on
that's a fine
X,
rule.
on X right now, you can mark your posts as being promotion, right? If you're not marking it as promotion, and it is promotion, then you get dinged with the spam thing. And if people are promoting stuff and they're not getting banned, then it might be okay for a third party, I don't know who would have standing to bring the case or be the federal government or what, to say like, well, hold on. If somebody wants to sue your platform because you don't seem to be enforcing the standard evenly, then I think somebody might have the right to do that. What's the problem here?
Well, that's how things already are today. That's what it is today.
What? How can you sue somebody for something hosted on a social media platform with user-generated content? I thought that was the whole point of
there's
Section
multiple-
230 protections, no?
No, there's multiple ways. You can sue them saying that they're not following their term. I mean, these are recent upbringings to 230, like in Khalees versus Meta and YOLO versus Bride and Snap v. Lemon. You had situations where in different cases they did runarounds of 230 saying, hey, you have a terms of service and you're not actually following it. Or, hey, you have a product liability flaw here that's allowing, this
Give
bad
me the
thing to
first case that
happen.
you just cited. What was the first case you said?
You do not want to go down this road with me. This is my entire fucking business. Do not go here. You'll get fucking raped to a level you
well,
can't
the last
go.
time you made a super strong prediction, you were completely and totally obliterated on
This
it. And
is
you
my
still seem to think
entire
that
company.
Ethan, okay,
I understand
that's fine,
every aspect
but
of what
made
this
the
has
same
to
prediction
go.
for Ethan Klein's
There-
case. By the way, we can bet on that appeal too. It's going to get shot down because it's the easiest free speech case in the fucking world. So what is the first case
Okay.
you cited? Just give it to me. I'll just read it to see if it even applies to what we're talking about.
Okay, sure. Khalees v. Meta.
How do you spell Khalees?
Calisse.
Okay. Carry on.
Basically, what you're talking about also, like, how do we enforce that on email now, Kafka? What about that spam filter? What about, which comes into my realm, especially more, C2B, which comes into, as a user, how can I say that I want to filter the content that comes into my inbox or what shows up on my
Why would that be an
kids?
issue?
Because that's part of Section 230.
No, no.
And you think email,
but
but you think that
why would-
could Gmail turn evil overnight and start filtering all DNC messages and allowing RNC?
I don't have enough knowledge about the.
Well, there was a case, RNC versus Google. They lost it.
Okay. I don't have the specific knowledge to discuss that. What I'm telling you is that, again, it whether or not a spam rule could be crafted such that it would survive what I'm discussing is actually impossible really to know at this point. As Destiny said, it would be crafted and then challenged in court, and then courts would determine whether or not, like, where that discretionary line would be, right? We do this a lot where we say, okay, here's like a 4-factor test of how we would determine whether or not this rule is discretionary or not. And they would go in and say, okay, well, the spam rule says you can't make more than 4 posts in a 60-second period. Okay, is that spam? Is that a discretionary thing? Well, no, there's a metric that we can actually measure. So there's not actually a discretion here. They can just count how many posts there were in a 60-second span. Okay, well, that's not any discretion. So it's a non-discretionary rule. We're going to allow them to maintain their liability. If they come around and say, you can't post too much, well, we don't know what too much means here. That can mean a lot to a lot of different people. That's too discretionary. So we're not going to allow that one. We need this to be more defined, right? So, like, whenever you're talking about, like...
So you're not to be clear
I don't know
here.
enough
How do you?
about how spam and stuff works to be able to talk to you sophisticately.
Well, I mean, it's an important
about
part
how you
because
craft a rule.
Okay, it's an important part that has to be addressed for any 230 reform, because without it, everything goes to shit. So I do ask.
But I wouldn't put it in the legislation. I would allow the courts to determine how we would interpret that and craft a rule that actually works with the system, right? If I try to legislate it, it's not gonna be as effective as if we have actual people trying to implement rules and then courts going through it and saying, okay, this is how we're gonna make this work so that people can still have liability or liability protection whenever it's appropriate and lose liability protection when it's not appropriate.
Okay. This seems like you're like, I want to reform 230. No one can be anonymous on the internet anymore. Is another
I
part
don't
of
know
what
if
you're.
that's part of 230. I don't know. I said that's a separate thing. I would not put that in this line of discussion. This line of discussion is specifically about platform liability.
Okay. But your whole thing ties into the fact that like you'll be not able to be anonymous as a result of this. So a lot of your
I
stuff
think that
is
would benefit. I think that would benefit the system that I'm talking about for sure. I don't think it's necessary. It would just
okay.
benefit it if that was true.
Um, okay. So you don't need the no anonymous stuff for your thing then.
I don't think it's strictly necessary, no, because it would rely on the user trying to like overturn a ban against them, right? So it doesn't like if I want to stay anonymous and I'm trying to undo this, well, if I'm going to sue this company in court, I've got to stop being anonymous, right? So it's not strictly necessary there. I just think it's helpful because if you have people not being anonymous online, it would actually solve a lot of our issues that we have with how people use the internet, and it would naturally flow into this and kind of reduce the amount of appeals and bans and things like that would be needed.
Um, I don't see it, and I think that there would still be discretion, and I think that we already have a legal system if people break the law, I guess.
Well, but like right now, do you think that Destiny's ban from Twitch is fair? Do you think that is a clear and good application of the terms and service?
No.
Okay. What can Destiny do to sue them to overturn that?
Wait, why should you be able to sue to get back on a?
Okay. Because what I'm saying is that they need to give you clear and actual banning from their website, why they happened, and a process for you to get it unbanned that is clear and gives you a process right. Um, and Dan's saying that already exists and is something that you could already do. I'm not aware of you having a property right to the income that you make from Twitch that would allow you to have any kind of legal action against them for being banned. I'm saying that Section 230 should be amended so that people that make over a certain amount of money from online activity on different platforms would have a property right that's defensible based on how the terms of service are applied.
Oh, I don't
Even in
have
that
any strong opinion
circumstance,
about that, or I feel like that would be a thing. I feel like this is
even
more
in
of a
that
question of
circumstance,
like
Twitter would get rid of monetization, right?
I feel like it's more of a question
Okay,
of like
but I mean,
employer-employee relationships or something along those lines. Or
yeah, that's what I discussed earlier too. As I was saying, I think that right now the nature of content creators and platforms has bled into that there's so much income being given to content creators to create things for the platforms to make money that we are entering an area where there needs to be some kind of controls and protections akin to uh, even just independent contractors or employers, such that people need to have these property rights so it's not just super discretionary on the side of the platforms.
I mean,
Because the
maybe, but I
platforms
mean, not
retain.
to, I mean, not to cuck out too hard, but I mean, like, technically, this is all employment, right? It's like this is like the right to work concept. Like, you could
Well,
work
okay.
for a real company for 15 years, and one day they could just say, "Sorry, I'm firing you," and then you're fucked. Assuming they're not like violating equal protections, right? It could happen. I mean, it can happen just as much as the real world is on YouTube.
Well, sure, that's true, but it's all. But the other side of it is that like they can, like for instance, YouTube can continue to make a lot of money off of you, even though you are demonetized, right? Even though, yeah, they're not strictly getting direct
True,
income
but
from
this is
your
also
channel.
true of all normal work. For instance,
You can get fired
you could
for
work for a law firm
yeah.
and you could be helping somebody clerk or prepare exhibits for litigation or something, and they get fired, and they could still use the work product or whatever. I imagine. Well, I don't even know, but I imagine they probably could, right? There are things that you could do, or if you worked in tech or whatever, you could create systems that are still being used after.
Oh, sure. I mean, like, I don't think it's like a one to one here, and I'm
Uh-huh.
not, and like, also, I am taking the extreme position because I prefer to take that over than the cucked position and then negotiate from there. But right now, it's so far in one direction that these platforms can operate this way, enjoy freedom from liability for the speech on their platforms, and control narratives and people's income in this way. And I think it all kind of bleeds together. I would say that my issue really, it's not strictly like, oh, I want it to be a one-to-one employment rights. I don't think it should be. But I do think there's a certain amount of it is we're saying, well, okay, if they can just shut off someone's channel just based off of their discretion, based off of whatever they want, okay, that's fine. But don't turn around and tell me that these platforms aren't then having first party speech whenever they're specifically choosing what speech to happen on their platform. If they have so
Oh,
much
that's
control
true.
that they can snap. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no,
So
yeah, I agree with that.
again,
Yeah, that it seems weird not
yeah.
to. But then then it comes down to a question of like, are we creating legal liabilities or are we just creating like tort stuff? So like, let's say for
He said
instance,
he wants them to lose protection.
let's say
for
let's say
total.
for let's say for instance Twitch decided to ban every single conservative speaker and they only wanted like hardcore liberal or leftist speakers on their platform. What kind of additional liability do you think that they should be looking for, like incurring? Like, are we talking criminal stuff or just tort stuff or what?
I don't know. I think it's just like the normal civil liability that would come, like anything that, like, just any kind of normal civil liability that would exist and be protected, and they would have enjoyed protection from 230. I'm fine with exploring ideas of additional, but for now, like, they don't even enjoy like
Wait, I'm confused.
current civil liability.
I
So
do
using
agree.
Destiny's
Actually, I do
example-
agree with that. I think so. Like, if I were to sue Hassan for defamatory speech, I should be able to sue Twitch as well. I think they should be a
Right, exactly.
defendant on that. Because in my mind, if they've obviously been fairly selective about who they allow on the platform, and then the CEO makes his preferences known as well. So how is that not seen as an endorsement of the speech from the platform? I think it's strange to say that you hide behind the nebulous cloud of 230 to say, well, we're not choosing, what speech to platform. These are just all content created things. And it's like, well, very clearly it seems to be there's some kind of preference given for some speech over another. So how do you have no liability for the type of speech that's being hosted? Yeah.
Right.
Well,
And
I
it's,
think Destiny has a case, to be clear, but I don't know if.
I've seen things that would make me think it's possible. I don't know enough to say one way or the other.
Well,
Like, the more
Kafka,
I'm
can
reading
I?
about
Can
Section
I?
230.
I want to
Yeah.
ask you. So, if you work at a job in a lot of states,
Okay.
they can fire you for any reason or for no reason. The only reason that they can't fire you for is a protected reason. And none of those is being conservative or liberal or whatever. They can literally be like, I don't like people with long hair, get fucked, bye, you're fired. And that would be a legitimate, I believe, legal reason. Maybe, I don't know, maybe not, maybe hair.
You're talking about like at-will
The hair thing would
establishments.
not be because they could be Rastafarian and long hair is actually
Yeah,
part of their
yeah,
religion.
I was
and
about to
so
say,
Dan
okay,
just got
yeah.
fucking owned. Go back to the
All right,
Marvel
so-
examples. Kid.
We don't like people that listen to Insane Clown Posse, so we're firing you.
Okay, sure.
Or we don't like people that listen to Joe Rogan.
This is why I
So we're
said a
firing
long
you.
time ago on my job, they call it papering people out the door. When you want to fire somebody, you just start writing them up for anything so that when you fire them, if you want to go on for whatever reason, it doesn't matter. As long as they're breaking rules, you just write them out the door and then they're gone. Yeah. And then
Yeah, and the problem is that all the
look-
rules are broad,
Okay.
always, because they have to be, because it's impossible to think up every situation, and you can't, and there's always discretions. The biggest issue we have with Twitch is that they're overly broad as compared to other platforms. But I just don't, like, if that's the rule that applies for your real life job, you think that you're going to get more than that for an online meme job?
You're coming at it from the wrong direction.
Okay.
If they want to get rid of you for whatever reason they want, they
Yeah.
can. They can still do that.
No, what
They
you're
just
you said is not true.
disregard
It's like you
the
can, you just have to completely get raped and lose all of your legal protections. You can do
Okay,
that.
well, what
That's like
legal
not, so
protection-
obviously they
one second.
can't do that.
A company doesn't enjoy Section 230 protections whenever they're hiring and firing people. That's
don't
not a
need it.
consideration we have.
Yeah, but
Right.
it's,
So why do these?
Well, a newspaper
why do
doesn't either,
companies not
yeah.
get that kind of protection? Why don't the companies get to have these kinds of speech protections and things like that?
I think the initial reason that only online companies had Section 230 and no one else did was that when the internet was first coming about, Congress wanted to make sure that it could be a diverse system free from kind of influence as well as allowing free speech to flourish. And that was the idea behind giving a specific rule here, because they felt that without Section 230, that it would be impossible for websites to host content from other users without being held specifically liable. Because at the time, they would be operating under the same principles that a newspaper does. If a newspaper publishes something that's defamatory about someone, right now, they don't have 230. They are held directly liable. So when Congress came out, they're like, okay, the internet's different. That's like a different thing than a newspaper. We got to give these guys kind of wild protections here, and that's how it came about in the first place. Now, if you're saying you want to get rid of that,
other than an argument in my direction, because the motivation.
Well, because if you did it, it stifles speech immensely.
Not happened, and the opposite has happened explicitly.
So I don't know if that's true. I mean, there's also
the internet is not a diverse place. The internet is not a place where you can just do any, like, where all this great, there's no influence and control. The internet is sectioned off into 5 different websites where people all hear what the people controlling the websites want to hear.
Here's something. Wait. I have a question for you. Fix Reddit for me, because on Reddit there's not always even the individual.
I don't know if I would even agree with what Kafka's saying there. What do you mean by that? I think that Twitch is relatively unique and that there's a more personal relationship between the top content creators and the staff. But for better or for worse, I think YouTube and X are pretty open. And insofar as like there are people that control it or want us to hear certain things on it, I don't know if that's necessarily just the platform.
To X right now?
I don't know. I mean, if you ask if you ask X, it's every other company on the planet because we can't do antitrust. But realistically, I don't know. Blue Sky and Mastodon.
Yeah. Okay. What's the big competitor to Google right now?
Well, Threads is the biggest one to Twitter.
What's the biggest competitor to Facebook? What's the biggest
to Google?
I mean, I would agree that these things basically have their kingdoms.
A massive amount of consolidation.
Yeah. No, I agree. But I'm just saying that on these platforms,
230 is going to make it where we're in this marketplace of competition has failed. It has not worked. 230 has.
It's not for that. That's not fair. That's not what
it
is.
You just said that to me. You just said.
No, I said it's in a place where open communication can be fostered and not be stifled.
Not influenced. You said that too.
No, not influenced by the government.
Okay, wait, hold on. I read this last night and I was like, finish the game within 40 hours, 100 hours, and then I was looking at the time my current Factorio save. I'm actually on track to do that easy. How is this only 0.4%? But then I looked at the achievement. This is, you have to make it to the shattered planet in 40 hours? So you have to clear every single planet in 40 hours? Bruh.
Compare the internet to all of these other things, to look at the internet, say, hey, these companies that have way too much market share are enjoying way too much liability. And you know what?
Oh, well, that's different. Wait, you talk about monopoly. Hey, you talk about monopoly. I'm fine with putting a hard cap at like, let's say like 500 billy. 500 billy. I think that like beyond that, you get monopolized.
Antitrust, I'm happy to talk about it. I know how antitrust works and stuff like that. This does have antitrust aspects to it. But what I'm saying is that what I'm describing would create environments where you would have more diversity. You would have websites that would not be broad, gigantic, and have tons of discretion to do whatever they want. You would have to have clear, like, this is what this website is for, specifically about these things. We want to maintain our protection from liability. So we want this website to...
Random seed speedrun is 3 hours. 3 hours to launch a rocket or 3 hours to get to the shattered planet? It has to be 3 hours to launch a rocket. No way. Or are there like tricks or something? Like, can you know any percent glitch through and then land up on a kilo or whatever, the planet?
You don't want to have to actually do your job and make sure that
Oh, I bet blueprints, you probably lay everything out in advance and everything kind of. Are you ready to go? Yeah. Huh.
And what people see and hear as far as the news. I'm sorry. I don't know why the fuck I want to live in a world where Mark Zuckerberg controls like 80% of communications, or where Facebook is people's number. And
these
Twitter
are antitrust. These are antitrust issues. These are not
I
issues
agree.
Dealing with 230 though.
230 can help address antitrust issues. There's no reason why it can't.
It's a completely different thing. Enforcement arm and rule.
Okay, Dan, I hate to do this to you. What acts are important for antitrust law?
In my mind, I think the acts that would be most important is using its weight to destroy other competitors. Like a good example of this would probably be Amazon versus Diaper.com, where Amazon completely wiped them out when they were trying to acquire them by just lowering the price of diapers.
Oh, it's not getting to the shutter planet, it's getting to the edge of the solar system. Okay.
Sell as a result of that. Like that happens. Now that's like a great example of like a something that should be like, we should be fucking considering going after Amazon for this shit. Like that's like that's the whole thing. It's like an anti-competitive thing that destroys fair use. It's like
talking about the Sherman Act and the Clayton Act. And these have specific things.
What's the second one? I know the Sherman Act.
The Clayton Act, Clayton 7.
I don't know the Clayton one.
Those have specific things that they do to try to address market share and companies that exist that are trying to expand and grow in these ways. And I agree. I want those enforced more, and that'd be great. Guess
So,
what? Both Democrats and Republicans have chosen not to do that.
okay,
Okay,
so what's the point
but
then? You're like, we want a new law that no one will enforce either. So what's the point?
why would nobody enforce it? I
No
don't
one's
need the
enforcing the one we
government
have now. That's
shut the
why.
fuck up and let me respond. Well, guess what? If the government's not going to enforce it, this law that I'm describing to you right now allows for individuals to sue companies and say, hey, fucker, you aren't following your terms of service. And if you don't do that, I'm going to sue you in court and get your liability removed. And once your liability is removed, you're going to lose a lot of fucking money. And that company's going to go, oh, fuck. I'm going to lose a lot of money if I lose my liability. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to tighten my shit up. I'm going to make sure that I control my fucking website and so that it's focused on the things I want it to be focused on. And then whenever people come there and they say, I want to talk about this shit that you guys aren't talking about, the website goes, fuck off. And those people go, okay, you know what I'm going to go do? I'm going to go make my own website where we get to talk about what I want to talk about. And guess what? Now I have two websites that talk about separate things and are competing in a market with multiple social media websites where they are all sectioned off and they have their
This
own
is
points. And
delusional. Have you heard of
liability
Reddit? On Reddit, there are subreddits that cater to different people. You
Yes,
understand that,
thank you.
right?
Yes. And you know what? I would be fine if we said, hey, each subreddit, you guys can have your own fucking terms of service. And as long as that subreddit has those terms of service, guess what? They get liability protection or something along those lines. I'm not
The
super
subreddit
sure. I'm
moderators
fine
are
with
going to get
that.
sued now?
Hell
I
yeah.
don't know. Maybe Reddit would say, hey, guess what, subreddit people, you'll have to follow these fucking rules and make it clear. Because you know what? If you don't, we're gonna lose liability and then we're fucked. And then we're gonna come after fucking you. All right. How about they do
Oh.
that?
And you know what that
What's the
would do?
problem there? What is the government? How is the
It
government getting in
sounds
the way of
like
their
you
demand?
would be stomping down on a lot of speech by doing this.
Okay, that's fine with me. I don't
Yeah,
know
it's not,
why you think I'm a person that
I'm
is
not
against
okay with it.
that.
I'm not okay with it. Why? Because there's an entire amount of things that it's like there should be 100 guilty men that go free before one innocent man goes to jail. I view there should be
Okay.
100 spammers that are allowed to spam before one innocent man gets banned off of Twitch.
So we should remove all the speech protections for newspapers right now. We should remove
No,
all of
I
that.
didn't say that.
All the standards. Well, you're suppressing the newspaper speech.
I think they should. I think newspapers should have more protections, but it's
Even though
different.
it restricts their speech, it
No, they
pushes them
should have
down.
protections for op-eds for anyone who's a direct employee.
100, 100 newspapers that want to speak can't speak because you want to let the newspaper you like
You
speak
keep
or
interrupting me.
whatever.
I'm giving real answers
Yeah.
to your question, but then you interrupt me because it's not like the gotcha. You asked me if newspapers should have more protections. The answer is absolutely for anyone who's not an employee. For sure, they should have full-on 230 protection for anything that they publish that is not from a direct employee. Absolutely. There you go. Anyone that's an
Okay.
employee can obviously be held liable, similar in the way that anyone's employee of Facebook that makes a post on behalf of Facebook could be already held liable as the company. That's already the case.
Okay. So, all right, I hear you.
Okay.
You are consistent. Congrats. But again, it's the thing where you're saying like, I want to protect speech. I want to protect these spammers. I don't. I don't find value in it. I don't find value in having websites
I
that
don't
can
like
control
spam
narratives
either,
and things
to
like
be
that.
clear. Okay, because my
Okay.
entire
Well, what's the counterbalance? What's the thing that you were gaining by allowing all this to happen?
so the issue is that Section 230 is about a few things in general. I'll summarize them. So the first thing
Okay.
it's about the platform's ability to moderate the content as it sees fit. That's the first thing. That's the thing that we're kind of talking about here. The second thing is it's about the platform's ability not to moderate as it sees fit as well, which is an equally important part of it. And then the third thing is the ability for the platform in its own independent discretion to decide without any consequence what is or is not objectionable content as defined under Section 230. So like, for instance, your spam filter in Gmail, right? Sometimes it puts stuff in spam that shouldn't be in spam. But no matter what, the people that are put in spam don't get to sue. You understand what I'm saying? Like, for instance, let's say I start up like danslegoshop.com and I just start blasting it out to everyone I know who's ever talked about fucking Lego. Does this company have a right, Gmail have a right to say, okay, well, you know, even though you're not selling stuff, you're just talking about how they should join your Lego website and it's free and there's no ads, you know, can we put this in spam or not? So how does that work in that front? And the question is that as you start trying to weasel in and tighten 230, you realize that the openness of it is what's required for a huge amount of the internet to be usable, especially when it comes to things like email or instant messaging, or we haven't even gotten into like phone calls or text communications, which are obviously not bound by 230, but they have their own more restrictive set of rules as well, where there's federal punishments for it. So that's like the counter I would give to you is like, who's allowed to email you? Who's allowed to put that email into spam? What happens if I was a legitimate friend and they put me in spam? Do I get to sue? Does the platform lose their ability now? What about if they do it a second time?
The
I
answer to every single difficult question of law is you pass a law and then you allow it to be disputed in court. And then after a certain amount of time of different district courts, of it percolating up to your different circuit courts, maybe even a Supreme Court case, what happens is like Kafka said earlier, eventually you develop these tests. Nobody created like the Brandenburg test for violent speech or whatever because they were like, okay, well, we're going to make the First Amendment, but we need to also be able to prosecute these other types of crimes. Nobody made jingles or gingles or whatever for your Section 2 Voting Rights Act test. Like, these are things that develop organically as a matter of jurisprudence over time when cases are heard. So you would pass a law, all the questions that you're asking, Dan, would be real questions, and every motherfucker would be suing over it. But then over time, what would happen is that courts would start to rely on like frameworks or tests or things that they would see that would end up working, and then those are the things that would eventually become like I don't know if you, I'm sure you have a formal name for these in law.
A little bit.
I don't know what that means, but
well,
you would have tests, you'd have
fair.
ways to apply things that you would start to look at things. It's possible to do it, but you would have to see how the courts end up applying it.
Well, what's the standard right now for what is pornography versus art, Steve?
I don't know. There's probably general, like it depends on if you see genitalia or not. It probably depends on I know you really want to say I'll know it when I see it, but it's not that simple. You're saying that because you've never read any case law before. You have no idea. You just think it can be anything. No, that's not true. There's going to be some body of nobody's going to look at an episode of the Teletubbies and say that's porn, right?
Yeah, obviously.
Okay,
never.
So obviously there's some set of things that make something pornographic or obscene and not protected by the First Amendment versus something that doesn't make something pornographic, right? This is a thing that exists. There are concepts tied to what is pornography and concepts tied to things that are non-pornographic, and those are the things that we see. It might be hard to when somebody says, "I'll know when I see it." What they mean is it's really hard to specifically articulate a discrete thing.
I agree.
But that doesn't mean
on my side now.
No, but that doesn't mean that it's impossible, though. Hold on. You understand that pornography has not defended free speech in the United States, right? There are no First Amendment protections. So it was done. So the example you're giving me is an area where, even though it's hard to figure it out, they have, and there are no free speech protections for pornographic stuff.
Well, that's just because there's no free speech protection for media. It's different than speech. Yeah, there's no free speech protection for anything that's not speech.
Correct, but it's not speech because it's obscene. Obscene stuff is not speech. For media,
It's not speech because it's not speech. It's not words.
No. Speech is much broader than just words. It's not speech because it's obscene. Obscenity is not protected speach. And pornography...
I would show you a piece of art that is actual art that's that's a woman actually getting fucking ass fucked that has been defined as art, and for anyone else, it's something you could jerk off to, like unironically.
Then just so you can jerk off to it. But if it's like actually got obscenity in it, then there's probably been somebody suing over it, and there's probably been a lot of debate back and forth over whether or not it's considered free speech. But this is why when the pornography arguments came before the Supreme Court about whether or not you could require an ID to view pornography online and everything, the huge part of this argument was whether or not what is the percentage of content hosted on places like Pornhub that's considered obscene, because obscenity is not covered by First Amendment protections. Obscenity is just another category of stuff that can be your scrutiny tests go from like strict scrutiny protections to rational basis protections. Holy shit. Okay, I love you guys. I'm leaving. Bye. I'm so sorry. Hi, what's up? I'm in Zoom. I just saw you joined. I have no idea how much that you just heard me screaming about.
Like 15 seconds.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Did I interrupt
nope,
something?
You're totally fine. I was on Discord. Don't worry about it.
Hey,
how's it going?
to meet you.
Hey,
Am
nice
I
to
supposed
meet
to
you.
call you Steve, Steven, Mr. Destiny? What is your preferred?
I go by Steven in the real world.
Steven?
Yeah, Steven.
In the real world? All right. It's nice to meet you, brother.
Nice to meet you, too. I'm doing great. Give me 1 second. I'll get your camera on screen. Hold on. My background in streaming a long time ago, I was a professional gamer, and my gamer name was Destiny, so it just kind of carried over from all my branding and everything.
I love that, man.
All right. We are joined by...
Did I fuck your shit up by like just coming in mid-rant?
Oh, no. There's another program I use called Discord, and we were arguing over some...
You're on Discord.
Section 230 stuff, basically, but yeah. Well, how are you doing today?
Okay. You know, I wrote 2,000 words that nobody will fucking read because it's about demand externalities and the possible labor market implications of. Yeah. Hey, Gabe, I'm on a live thing. It's okay, bud. Love ya. Sorry, 10-year-old coming in.
You're fine.
It's G Money, right? Anyway, you know, I love writing about shit nobody reads. It's great.
I'd say I feel the pain, but I guess I don't write as much. But do you have a background in finance or?
No,
Or
I just
economics,
I like economic shit, and I mean, I did a minor in economics at the Johns Hopkins University.
Okay.
But I'm not sure what that counts for.
Well, if you're talking about economic stuff today, I guess it counts for more than 99% of the internet conversation. So it's funny you mentioned writing something. There are so many things that are said. I'm sure you know this in our current political climate where it's like absolute nonsense. Like every time I hear Trump say, we're fine with oil in the United States because we make enough oil here, so prices around the world don't impact us. And it's just like,
Right.
I don't even know how to begin with. Yeah, are we banning all exports or?
It's a global market.
Yeah. It's so on its face absurd. Yeah.
Yeah, the extent to which people are basically economically illiterate. Like, I mean, I spent all of 2024 fighting with my best friend Sarah Longwell about deflation, and she was explaining to me that like the voters just want deflation. I was like, no, they don't. Deflation is terrible. If deflation hits and prices go down, it means we are mired in an economic catastrophe, and these people will be out of work and losing their houses. Like, we're supposed to just pat the voters on the head when they say, well, I want prices to go down.
Yeah. There's a lot of that. I don't know if you'd call it a revealed preference or proxy issues where people say they want one thing. I think housing is another huge topic that is never really touched much because everybody wants lower housing prices. And it's like, well, 70% of Americans live in an owned home where the house is like, and for most Americans, your house is your biggest investment. Do they really want housing prices to go down? Yeah. It's like,
and Trump said this,
Yeah.
like, I don't know, like 3 weeks ago or something. He was like, housing prices have to go down. And for everybody who owns a house, the value of their home is going to go up.
yeah,
Great.
there we go.
Sure, man. Rock and roll.
Yeah, it is what it is. Okay, I want to ask you, we love you in my audience, but I have to figure out now if we should or if it's an act, okay? One of the huge issues that I have today and my audience has today, and I think there's a decent chunk of people have, is it feels like we're living in a reality where stuff is so unbelievably crazy. And then you kind of look at the people that are supposed to be your cheerleaders, and it feels like I don't want to say we should be outraged, but it feels like sometimes there's just a little bit too much acceptance of the stuff that's happening. And then it makes me feel a little bit crazy. I think probably one of the strongest reactions I've had to content on your guys' platform recently, and I was happy to see you feel similarly, I think, was that horrible, horrible conversation that Tim had with that All In podcast guy.
Oh, my God, that fucking guy.
It was so many things said out loud where I'm like, did you really just say that they actually like the authoritarian because they're friends with him and they can get personal favors from it? Or I just like couldn't believe it. It was like when people say eat the rich.
Right? Jason
Yeah.
yeah.
It was just insane to me. And then I feel like there's so much pressure, I guess, on all the center left media when they're engaging with these people to treat it seriously. Like, okay, well, let's debate the merits of random, 2-digit, 3-digit tariffs on every single country on the planet and see if this will be good for our economy going forward. It's like,
this is like one of the many asymmetries where when we're talking about people on the right, we're supposed to dismiss everything crazy they say. And if they ever said one thing that was like halfway sane, we'll just engage with that on the merits. I remember the Free Press writing a piece about RFK Jr. that was like, sure, he says people are having microchips implanted in their brains, but also
he wants the kids to
once
exercise.
said this other thing that was, that in France they do, and France isn't crazy, so maybe we should just start taking him seriously. And then in the other way, it's like, well, if Anthony Fauci ever said one thing that wasn't 100% verifiably true, well, then you can't trust anything he says. Like that. That's like this asymmetric trap we're in, and it drives me a little bit insane. I don't know how to deal with it. I think it's because I mean, this is like largely a media problem, I think, where, normal media is still trapped in the before times, where they're like, all right, we got to assume that basically most people are working on good faith and people will shade and spin, but they won't outright lie. And yeah, that world is gone, man.
Yeah. Can I, real quick, can I make a request? Are you able to turn your mic up at all?
Yeah, I got gain on this thing. Hold on.
All right. It's a little quiet.
You tell me. Is that better? Do you want it? Am I too hot? You want more?
Little bit more.
I
and
can
we're
give you
good.
more.
No, wait, that's good. Whatever you just said there was perfect. Okay.
Yeah, there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's good. There's somebody in my chat will say this. There was like a law that somebody cited, like a little political speech thing, but it's this concept that conservatives are treated like children always, and Democrats are treated like parents. So whenever things are happening, Democrats have all of the autonomy, and then when the Republicans
have
are
no
office,
agency.
Yeah,
no agency at all.
Yeah.
How could they?
And it's so crazy. Like when this happens, it happens a lot in the UK when it comes to Brexit. When you ask a conservative, what's going on with the country today? Why do you think things are kind of like messed up? Nobody brings up Brexit. It disappears from the conversation for some reason. Or when you ask, people are so keen to bring up, Biden's economy had so much inflation. And it's like, why? Well, government spending and what else? What else was happening? I don't know. What else was happening? And then I think I even did this live in a discussion. I think I even said to the audience, watch this. And then I asked the guy, why do you think Trump had such a bad economic record at the end of his... And they're COVID. And it's like, what? It drives me insane. And you use that word asymmetry. And it's funny because you use a lot of the same examples that I do too, where Fauci maybe, I'm not even sure if he did, he maybe said one wrong thing about masks one time. So now the person who is infinitely skeptical, and they're like, well, they lost our trust. Well, who do you trust now? The guy who fucking drinks blue food dye and thinks they solve fucking autism by telling moms not to take Tylenol? And it's like, or Alex Jones? And it's like, there are so many wrong things. I'm still waiting every day, okay? I wasted $2 million on term life insurance because I thought I was going to drop dead from my boosters, 3 years ago, and it still hasn't happened yet. There's been no mass casualty event. Like, everybody says, I remember that Joe Rogan quote where you're like, well, the conspiracy theorists ended up being right about a lot of stuff. No, they were wrong about everything.
Wrong about everything.
But you wouldn't get that impression when you watch the media today, even on the left. And I feel like a lot of it is they got brain broken from 2017 to 2021 with this term. We do this in the YouTube world. When somebody's criticizing us too much and we don't want them to criticize us, we go, you're obsessed, bro. Why are you talking about me so much? You're so obsessed. And they're like, oh, shoot. And then they stop talking about you. And I feel like the conservatives did that with Trump derangement syndrome, where the liberals were like, man, should we really be impeaching him again for trying to insurrect the government? Didn't we already impeach him once for trying to hold stuff from Ukraine to get dirt on political opponents? Maybe we are kind of deranged. And it's like,
yeah, I mean, there's something to that. There's also everything's both sides, Stephen. Everything, there are problems with both sides.
My cortisol just spiked so much when you said that. I had to, sorry.
There are problems with both sides. I mean, on the one hand, you have the president of the United States controlling a masked secret police force that is more funding than the Marines. And they often execute people on the streets of America. On the other hand, there were some kids at Oberlin who wrote some really mean things and held them up on signs at this protest once. So, you tell me.
It drives me insane. Do you watch a lot of Ezra Klein's pieces?
No.
Oh, well, my bad. Ezra Klein did a 2-hour interview.
Not a huge Ezra Klein fan.
Okay, that's fair.
It's okay.
I can imagine why. That's okay. I think
that shouldn't stop you. I know who he is. I'm familiar with his oeuvre.
Okay.
I don't hate the guy or anything. He's not in the Ross Douthat place with me or anything like that.
He's not in the what place?
The Ross Douthat place.
For my audience who doesn't know what that word means, what does that mean?
Ross Douthat? You don't know Ross Douthat from the New York Times?
Oh yeah, Ross Douthat.
Ross Douthat.
The prestigious New York Times guy.
The prestigious New York Times columnist, the reasonable conservative.
The reasonable conservative. Oh yeah. Wait, he does
he
does the show.
With that guy.
He does the
yes.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
I do know this guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the guy I am unhealthily obsessed with.
Why are you unhealthily obsessed with him?
Because he's like the biggest fraud in America, and I hate him so much.
Okay. Jeez. Okay, I'm trying to think.
Ezra Klein.
No, you're good. I normally do
Ezra Klein.
adversarial conversations, so I'm having a cathartic conversation. I don't navigate these as much. I remember listening to Ezra talk to Ben Shapiro, and I know you've heard these talking points before. And it was just phenomenal to me to hear Ben Shapiro talk about how Obama just like rubbed so many conservatives so wrong. And given the opportunity, Ezra Klein asked, what were the things that Barack Obama did that, got you guys so riled up? And the two things that Ben Shapiro cited were, one, he spoke too quickly about the Henry Louis Gates thing. I think it was the Harvard guy who got the cops showed up because he was trying to break into his own house.
The beer summit.
Yeah, the beer summit. Yeah, imagine that, huh? And then when Obama said that Trayvon Martin looked like he could have been his kid, and I'm like, that's the level of like we could take a single day. Yeah, I know.
Stephen, he wore the tan suit.
Tan
You remember
suit,
when
yeah.
he bowed to the Saudi king?
Oh,
Remember
yeah.
he inclined his head to the Saudi king.
Not good. Meanwhile, Trump is saluting the North Korean military. Yeah, it's such a joke. Man, I have this is where I'm at. So
I've never done a stream before, so maybe I'm just doing this all wrong.
No, you're good. You're good. Usually,
Okay.
I'm just free flowing my thought here. Okay, this is a thing I would like your feedback or opinion on. Okay, I am of the mindset right now, and I've been screaming at a lot of people about this, that I feel like right now there is a media ecosystem that is really well understood by the MAGA movement, and it's really understood by, I don't know what you guys are calling them now, but we call them ML types, Marxist-Leninists, or tankies, or the socialists, but like the real socialists, not like the I want
Like the
Medicare for all.
Trap House guys, right?
Sure, yeah, the very, very left people, the anti-democratic party people who are on the left. And the way that this media ecosystem works is you plant ideas in the top where they're allowed to basically resonate through a bunch of people in an uncritical fashion. And then those kind of like percolate to your mid-tier alternative media streamer people, and then they're all accepted because they were all seen up here and you want to be part of that ecosystem. And then they make it to like the For You pages on everybody's social media, where now the opinion has been fully validated and laundered, and this is your reality. And this is done so well in MAGA and so well on the far left, but I feel like when I'm looking at the lib left or moderate left people analyzing the media environment, they keep seeing the stuff that comes out of the bottom of that funnel, and they think, how can we replicate that bottom thing? So they'll see something like, Trump was able to message really well on this because he hit this point and this point and this point. Or Mamdani is able to message well on this because he hits this point or this point. And when I'm looking at it, what I'm seeing is, no, the reason why it works is it doesn't really matter what the message is. It matters a little bit. But what helps is that when Trump has this initial thing, we'll say it's something related to Russiagate. You have Tulsi Gabbard that will make the rounds on every Fox show. All of them will uncritically repeat it. All of that credibility then falls to the alternative media people, who then essentially uncritically repeat it because they're, I don't know in your show if you say retarded, but they're fucking retards. And then that makes it to the average person who watches it, and now they like believe it all, and all of that opinion is like from top to bottom is how it works. And then on the moderate left, to the lib left credit, we're a more self-critical people, but we end up needling ourselves to death over here. So there's like no way that any coherent messaging or opinion from like the Democratic Party can even get out of the crib. It's killed in the crib immediately, basically. I don't know how you feel.
That sounds probably about right. I mean, a lot of it is the center left and the center right, to the extent the center right even still exists. I mean, the center right now is like the center left from 10 years ago, like
Sure.
the same people, right? And the center left has shifted a little bit to the left, not a lot though. And a lot of it's like, those are not the kind of spaces that like have their own niche, because they're by definition centrist and not fringes. They don't have their own like boutique niche media, right? Because by definition, like you're with the normies. You're with the normies. And so I don't know how this all works. So much of it really, well, I don't know. Let me ask you, because this is something I go back and forth with. How much of it is about messaging and how much is just vibes? Like people want what they want, and
I think
make up what they want, and then they backfill and justify their decisions and their desires and urges after the fact.
I think a lot of it is vibes, but this is the thing that I think is so hard for people to understand. So my mom and dad are ride or die MAGA, like to like 100% of the answer. My mom is Cuban, and Cubans are all crazy in the United States. But I think what people don't understand sometimes is everything today on your social media feeds is so heavily algorithmically curated to match the other stuff you've seen that
yeah.
if you try to argue with somebody about a thing, even if you argue it the best way possible, and I don't mean just like, oh, you make all the logical points, but like you're compassionate, you break through and everything else, you might be able to come through really, really well on a point and maybe even make them reconsider possibly on a thing. Maybe the vaccines weren't a mass extermination program, maybe. But even if you do that, the microsecond they leave, it's like an addict coming out of rehab and going right back to Skid Row. They're back on, well, what did Joe Rogan talk about today? Oh, it's 4.5 hours with Dr. Robert Malone about how COVID lab leak happened. Oh, it's Ian Carroll to talk about how Churchill was the bad guy in World War II. Or, oh, it's the other guy who's talking about the lost city of Atlantis and how the JFK assassination was fake. And it's Dave Smith to talk about how Iraq and it's just that environment, when you're in it, there's no way that you're ever getting like your mind changed unless you have to be totally removed from that environment. So insofar as you say, is it vibes? Like, I do think that the media you consume can heavily dictate even how you feel about a thing. Like, there are people, when you talk about them, I think some people will describe problems as opportunities or opportunities as problems, depending on who's in office. But I think that those vibes are very heavily and very inorganically controlled on the far right. And I would argue, well, the far right is all of MAGA. And then I would argue now the tanky people on the left have figured out how to do it pretty well as well. But the lib left people are completely and totally clueless and cannot do a message from top to bottom at all.
I mean, are you describing a platform problem or a media problem?
I think
Because it feels a little like a platform problem. Like, this is what Twitter and YouTube and TikTok are. They see something that flits across your screen that you pause on for a minute, and then they just start giving you more.
I think it's a bit of a platform. I think the platform problem definitely amplifies it. But I think that, did you ever read any of the slides from the Fox News v. Dominion, that civil suit?
Yeah.
Everybody at Fox News knew that that story was a fucking lie that was used to push the insurrection. And everybody was complicit in selling it. I don't think you could get anybody like that story is what they accused like the left of doing with like Biden's health, basically, is what they thought. Yeah. And look at how big of a story the Donna Brazil thing was when Hillary got the one question in advance. That was, I think people still talk about it to this day. Bernie supporters will talk about that. Nobody, I don't even know how many my guess is less than 3% of Americans are even aware of that Dominion Fox News lawsuit, right? If that happened at CNN, oh my God. It would be. Do you remember the shadow voting app in the Iowa caucuses with between Pete Buttigieg? Yeah, these are stories that everybody, because it gets amplified by these sides. But the lib left, the moderate left people, they cannot amplify a message, partly because of the platform, but partly because people have like this understanding of what the mission is on the far left side and on the MAGA side, but not on the lib left side. The one example I always use is if you hear somebody say this candidate is really, really bad at messaging. That is a comment that will only come from the center left, because on the right, they understand that they are the messaging. Sean Hannity is never going to criticize how the Republican administration messages. He understands that it's his job to message for them at all costs.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, nobody will ever tell Mike Johnson, like, oh, Mike Johnson's not great at messaging because they do their own thing. Yeah. No, yeah, well, this is the point of having like the difference between having partisan and nonpartisan media, right? Like we have partisan media. And the partisan media is basically all of the MAGA stuff. And then we have the nonpartisan media, which is like everything that's mainstream. It's the New York Times. It's I guess not the Washington Post anymore. CNN. It's all these things. And I don't know what to do about any of this, and I don't know. I mean, I am bearish on America. I don't know how much you read my newsletter, but I think a lot of the traps we're in right now are really, really hard to get out of. Like, I don't think the before times are coming back.
Okay. Well, I feel like there have been a lot of times in history where people are like, this is the worst time in history. We've managed to bounce back. So I have to hope that you have to have some underlying, deep down, you have some underlying optimism. You must. Otherwise, why do anything,
really.
Right? Really?
Not really. I mean, like, it is true. Like, sometimes things get better. Like, sometimes societies fix themselves. But those aren't things you can really, like, engineer Like you get a Reformation movement or something like that. Like those things tend to be sui generis, and you can't predict them. You can't engineer them. It's not a button you can push. I don't know. I had David Frum on the podcast yesterday. I was sitting in for Tim, and David was doing like his hopeful thing about America can get better, and it's true, it could. But we have a couple problems happen. I'm at the very, very most macro level. We have a bunch of institutional problems where the system of government itself that we have has been exposed as having a lot of weaknesses to it. For instance, the separation of powers has been exposed as having a lot of weakness, right? Congress not doing its job. The electoral process, which has always had a bias built in towards rural citizens, that has become like sort of supercharged and leveraged to levels which I think make it a difference in kind, not just a difference in scale. We have a Supreme Court which has become sort of nakedly partisan, but also corrupt at the same time. It's just a bunch of problems. And then we have, in the realm of economics, concentrations of wealth, which again, once you like have a trillionaire, it's different. It's different even than like Gilded Age America. So you have stuff like that, all happening at the same time that you have the public itself becoming basically accepting of America turning into a banana republic. I mean, that is the thing about Trump is that he won twice. The second win is the big one. And it isn't like he won twice because the first one was like, well, it actually worked out pretty well. We didn't see anything bad. We had a global pandemic and 1 million Americans died. 1 million fucking Americans died. And this is like the one time in the history of America that all of a sudden voters supposedly have this very highly nuanced understanding and aren't just focused on results, right? I mean, I hear this all the time. People say, well, you can't blame Trump for the pandemic because you see there was this global thing and the infrastructure can only move so fast. But of course the economy was terrible under Biden, and Biden did that, right? So people become like super reductive when talking about the Biden years, but incredibly sophisticated and able to apportion blame versus non-blame during the Trump years.
On a quick thing on that, oh my God, one of the worst things I read in my entire life. I spent so much time in the COVID years arguing so much nonsense pseudoscience on the two big drugs were hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, just absolute dogs. Never worked out for anything. I think it was under DeSantis here in Florida, they published something about rescinding trans healthcare. It was either to everybody or at least to youth. And I saw on their printed statement where they're like, we have not seen any study of sufficient size that meets our gold standard criteria of being a double-blind controlled study or whatever. And I was like, oh, so you motherfuckers do know what good research is.
They need that.
And I know what you mean. Yeah, when you talk about like Trump couldn't control the pandemic, but Biden sure as hell was responsible for the Afghanistan pullout catastrophe. That was negotiated under Trump, by the way. He was responsible for Russia invading Ukraine. I don't know why or how. And he was responsible for the October 7th attacks, even though the Abraham Accord, we were told peace in the Middle East. I don't think we've ever had more peace in the Middle East more times than under Trump. I don't know if he's trying to get the Nobel Peace Prize. I think he's just spammed the achievement or something. But yeah, not to interrupt you, but yeah, that the double standard thing. And the thing, I just interrupted you, I'm sorry, just the thing, because you said this a few times, and I agree with this so much. It's this desire to seem like a reasonable person, and you have like a kid like smearing shit all over the wall, and then you've got another guy who's like tried to paint something, and maybe like the figures aren't like perfectly anatomically correct, and you're like, it's like your two children, you don't want to choose which one is your favorite, so you try to be like even-headed.
The perspective's kind of off on that one, Jimmy. I mean, really, your lighting isn't quite done. The chiaroscuro's not.
And then the shit painting is like, well, Monet had a lot of like really interesting, pieces of art that he did. And it's just like, are you fucking, I'm feel like I'm fucking insane here. And sorry. Yeah, it's the asymmetry is impossible to deal with because I think the average American looks at it because the average American, nobody has time to chase all of these stories to the ends of the earth. Even researching one of these stories can take weeks of time depending on how deep you want to go into things. And you look at the media, and you said something earlier. It triggers me so much because it's true, but nobody views it that way. The moderate left people really too try to be nonpartisan. And then the MAGA media is the most hyper-partisan trash in the universe. But that's not how the average American sees it.
They're explicitly partisan.
They
right?
are.
They're literally like they're not even ideological. They're just partisan.
Yeah.
Right.
But then the American public views Fox News is the right, and then CNN and MS Now and the New York Times and Washington Post, they're the left. And it's like, yeah.
I don't know how you fix any of that. And so I mean, and here's a real question for you. Has American society gotten worse? Like have the people as the organized gotten worse? And this is, so one of my beliefs is that like the human condition is real and persistent. And that in all times and all places, individual people in the human condition is the same. Right? You know, the sort of base desires and the virtues and all those things, they are the same today here in Florida as they were 1,000 years ago in, like, I don't know, the steppes of Asia or something. People are people. But societies change a lot, right? Once you start amalgamating people, the societies and cultures they build, they can take on very different characters, and they can move in ways. I mean, Imperial fascist Japan of 1925 is very different than Japan of 2026, right? Germany of 1940, very different than Germany of 2026. Like, it isn't like the people are the same. Like, you know, they're just human beings, but they build cultures and they build societies. And I don't want to go through all of American history because I can't speak to that. But do we think that the American society as a whole is like better and more healthy than it was in one generation ago in 2006? I think it's worse, like observably and measurably worse. The people are worse.
Yeah. Can I ask
how people are rotten?
I understand. Maybe not, or maybe, I don't know, the people, the culture maybe a little feels different.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's when I say the people have gone rotten, what I mean is the culture.
How old are you? Do you ever say that?
I'm in my early 50s.
Early 50s. Oh, I would have never guessed. So nice.
Thank you. Oh man, I know I liked you.
I'm 37, and I try. One thing I have to constantly check myself on, because I've gotten to the age now to where I can say, well, when I was a late teen, early 20s, everything on the planet was better. And my understanding is basically every single generation from the first Homo sapien that stood up was already complaining about how when he was on all fours, it was better or whatever in his teens or whatever. I feel like in a lot of cultural ways, the late 90s and like early mid 2000s, which would have been when I graduated high school, was like peak for social discourse, was peak for a lot of like cultural stuff. Like we had women representation better in media, but we didn't quite have the crazy. I don't know how much I want to get into the culture stuff. We were trying to be more woke on racial issues, but like DEI wasn't like the center point conversation thing, or we weren't like pushing for land acknowledgements or whatever, or we were trying to bring more awareness to stuff like the beginning of the Me Too movement. I think was really good. There are it's a whole side story, but I actually think the Epstein story has been one of the most annoying things in the universe for me personally to watch, because I think it's been a way for men to offload what has historically been the most normal behavior in all of human history, which is just men in power trying to have sex with all of the women that are trying to come up underneath them, and then abusing that role, and they tried to write it off as, oh, that was just a crazy weird pedophile problem, instead of like, this is a problem that exists basically everywhere. But then that kind of morphed into like, I feel like the peak horrible for this was that, is it Aziz Ansari? Is that how you say his name? There was that article written about, it was like, it just seemed like kind of like an awkward bad date / hookup. And this, everything kind of got crazy at that. And then the conservative hijacking of like, when the woke stuff got too woke, and it was like, okay, I think it's really cringe that you guys are pushing for stuff that's a little too woke. So now we need a $90 billion funded ICE to start assassinating American citizens and to be protected by the federal government. I was happy. It's like, holy fuck, what the fuck? And it's not good. We haven't recovered fully from season 8 of Game of Thrones yet, I fear. In American society, it does feel like.
I think that's right. I mean, a lot of it's just like questions like, what will the culture tolerate? Mm-hmm. Right? Like, what will people say? Where do they say the norms are, and where are the lines? And we've been like erasing those lines a lot over the last 10 years in ways which are so shocking that I honestly think if you just got into a time machine and went back to 2014 and described some of the shit that's going on and said, and also, what do you think the president's approval rating will be? People would say like 4%, right? And I just, nobody would believe you that these things are basically just tolerated. You're like, yeah, so the president had $2.2 billion in income in his first year in office because he was selling crypto and because his kids were making defense deals and whatnot. And also he had been convicted of these 34 felonies. And also he had to pay off this woman because a jury determined that it was true that he sexually assaulted her. Also, like, we now have law enforcement now wear masks all the time, and we have a nationalized police force that is mostly masked, who walks around, and they do kill American citizens, like execution style on the streets sometimes. Like, people would be like, oh, also in this other guy, he did attempt a coup, there was an insurrection and all this, and people be like, no, come on, that's not possible. But we just like adapt to it. And we're like, well, you know.
Yeah. I always
At
thought,
least it's not the Civil War.
true. Yeah. I always like imagine like it's 2050, 2060, and you're like a kid in high school, and then you read through the first Trump presidency, and it's like, okay, and then Biden, and then it's like, wait, they elect Trump again? So what did Biden do? And it's like, well, so
unemployment was 3.9% for 4 years.
it's just unbelievable. Yeah. So there was this guy called Hunter Biden, and it's like, oh, the Burisma stuff. Yeah. Although the guy that started that actually went to prison because he lied about all of it. And it's like, okay, geez, how much did he make from Burisma? Was it $5 billion, $6 billion? Like, well, it was less than what Tim Pool made actually in 1 year of getting Russian propaganda illegally wired to him through a shell company in New York City through Tenet. But we don't know anything else about that because the Trump admin that came in dismissed it. One of the reasons why Trump won, though, was the very aggressive lawfare from the prior Biden admin. And it's like, oh, what was the rule back then that made it so that attorney generals had to wait 2 years to start investigating the prior president for crimes? Like, well, no, they were just waiting. The normalization thing that you bring up is I mean, it's kind of what I opened this with. Yeah, it's crazy to me that I get so irritated because I'm sure you grew up hearing this. I grew up hearing this. We always have these like exceptional views of like how stupid were the Germans to like fall for Nazis, or how stupid were these people to fall for these insane ideas. And right now, there's like no limiting principle. There are no backstops on the Trump behavior. I feel like the last 10 years has been Donald Trump and the rest of the Republican lawmaker class, to their chagrin, finding out he can't say that. Oh my God, he can say that. Grab him by the pussy, he's gone. McCain, war heroes. My parents are both vets. You can't get away with. Oh, I guess you could. Never mind. I remember my mom standing in front of me in her in her little flight suit before she went to her. Both my parents were Air Force. I remember her standing in front of me. I don't think it's a flight suit. It's whatever the fatigues are or whatever. And she was crying when that Bill Clinton stuff came down, talking to me about how, Stevie, you have to understand that when we go to work every day as women, like the president is the commander in chief and his behavior rolls down right from the top and men see women that way and it's disgusting and blah, blah, blah. And my mom was one of the biggest defenders of Trump over the grab him by the pussy. That was 5 years ago, Stevie. He was
locker room talk.
Yeah. And it's like, what the fuck? Really? This was the party of moral centeredness or whatever, right?
Yeah, I've learned a lot in the last 10 years. None of it good. I don't think. I mean, but a lot of it true, right? And so it's good to open your eyes and to learn the true things, even if it's not very nice. And I mean, like you said, a lot of I literally just assumed that it couldn't happen here.
Yeah.
You know, like my whole adult life. You see, America's a mature democracy, and that makes it different, right? Because after X number of centuries, the institutions are built up, the guardrails exist, the checks and balances, right? But it has been very instructive to see, for instance, that in a capitalist system, if you get a strong man who comes in and wants to turn it into a command economy, the big businesses don't really object to it because they think they can work with it. Right. And so, like Jeff Bezos doesn't really get freaked out by Trump because he feels like, oh, I can make this work. Right. Elon Musk is like, oh, I can get on the inside. And so you now see like how IW Farber and all the German companies got on board with the Nazis, right? I mean, they think they can work with it. And you see how, I don't know. So I'm not a Republican. I've never been a Republican. I don't like parties, period. Like they're fine, but they're not for me. I'm not a joiner. But I grew up at the Weekly Standard. That was a conservative magazine. And so, I was hanging around them. I was sort of because I'm Catholic, I believe in all like the Catholic, social justice shit. I was always like the house communist.
Okay. Did you go to a Jesuit high school?
I didn't. You did though.
I did, yeah. Okay.
I saw.
Just curious.
Yeah. The Jesuits?
Yeah.
You had me a Jesuit. No? Are you still Catholic? No?
I'm not.
Were you Catholic to begin with?
I was very Catholic, yeah. But the Jesuit teaching order, it was a very, if my son wanted to, I would send him to that high school, no problem. It was a very good school, and I very much appreciate, the teaching order.
Was it Regis? Did you go to Regis?
Are there different?
It's just one of the big Jesuit high schools. Tim Miller went to Regis.
Oh, okay.
Tim Miller's a Regis kid.
I lived in Omaha. My high school was called Creighton Prep, so I don't know what that matters.
Creighton Prep. Sounds fancy. No, I didn't. But anyway, so I had always, I grew up in the world of like AEI talks and Brookings, and I just assumed, no, these people are all like ideologues. They're, they would never flip on all this stuff that they've dedicated. Nope. Nobody. Like 5% of them cared about the stuff they said. And for everybody else, it was just, I don't know, it was like a game they were playing or just a thing they said, or it was an excuse for their, pre-existing preferences and priors. And as soon as they saw a way to, scurry up the flagpole and get ahead, or they saw that in order to keep making money, they had to change their views. They just did it. And it wasn't even hard for most of them. So, we've learned a lot about the world. We've seen that it can happen anywhere.
To give like a slightly different view of it, I largely agree. There's two things I wish in history we did more in school. One is that I think historical fiction is actually really important. I feel like when you look at the Constitutional Congress or the Constitutional Congress, when you look at like the Revolutionary War, when you look at all of these big events in history, it's very inhuman or the humanity is like sucked out of it's like these computer programs went in and this is what they did. And people don't consider sometimes that you have, I think Benjamin Franklin was like when his 50s or 60s, and you had all these other guys that were in their like 20s, your Adams and all these people. This like influences the way that they approach each other, the way that they have conversations. And, as kids, it's hard even to imagine the difference in age sometimes. Like I remember in high school, I always roll my eyes at like in World War II, it was just a bunch of kids that went over. And it's like, these guys were fucking 18, 19-year-old. I don't know what you're talking about. But now like as a 37-year-old, I'm like, holy fuck, 18-year-olds with rifles on beach? That's crazy. I don't even know that's insane. So I feel like historical fiction, sometimes I think it would help people understand that there are like humans at the time dealing with these things, because of a second thing too, in that because history's already happened, a lot of people view history as kind of being inevitable, like things could have only gone one way. And I think that leads a lot to in our current time, there's a factor of, I say this when it comes to anything. It could be gym, it could be business, it could be hobbies or whatever. It's actually really easy to super dedicate something, to have high levels of motivation and to push really hard on a thing for like a day. Anybody can do that. But to maintain motivation over time in the face of adversity, that time element makes it a lot harder because you don't actually know if it's going to turn out one way or not. And a lot of the times, like how do you know if you're in a recession? Well, you won't until, I don't know if we still use this definition, but you have to have like 2 consecutive quarters of GDP. And now we might be in the bad times. Like, I had an argument before, like, well, you think we're in a fascist government? Is it fascist? And I was like, if this was a fascist government and if they were to determine that in the future.
Know.
Yeah, because in the future they would say yes. And all the signs were there and it started in 2018. and we'd be like, oh shit.
No, this is exactly the case. You know, nobody knows they're living through an Inquisition.
Yeah.
Right. And so you bring up something. This is something I think about a lot. Is the difference in viewing history through the contingent lens versus the dialectical lens. And so if you go back and read Marx, like real Marx, one of the things that is interesting about him is he views history dialectically, which is to say that there are these big forces, these big impersonal forces. They largely have to do with technology and capital and population flows, and they make everything inevitable. And like these forces are like the tectonic plates shifting underneath us, and they're what lead us forward in the world. And the opposite view of that is the contingent view, which is that it's like the great man theory of history. George Washington. Without George Washington, there is no America, et cetera, et cetera. And as with all things, like the answer is somewhere in the middle. Right. And history is much more contingent than we think it is often, but it is also dialectical. And so, for instance, like technology is one of the big dialectics, right? As technology begins, all of a sudden you have the printing press. And the printing press really influences how a bunch of things unfold after that. And economics, right? Concentration of wealth matters, and that influences things. But then it becomes contingent, right? And so you wind up in a way where you can say there's no real reason World War I had to happen, right? World War I sort of happens by accident, and so it's a really contingent event. But the fact of World War I makes World War II almost inevitable. Right, and because of the way the Western powers react to World War I and are trying to recoup their money and really sit on the Germans, and that makes so you have both of these things, right? So you have a contingent event, then creates this like dialectical event, and so all of which to say is I heartily agree that trying to expose people to thinking about history through both lenses, and to try to really hammer home to them that it's both, and to have a lot of imagination when they're thinking about history and to understand how it unfolds, that's the best way to sort of have an open mind about what the future can bring.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Is that too much? Sorry.
No, 100%. I agree. We've gone back and forth in discussing this a lot. Like this idea of the great man in history can change the course of events. Like, I fully believe in it, but the great man didn't land here on a UFO. He wasn't implanted by, well, I guess if you believe in Jesus, maybe one guy was, to carve out for your religious belief there. But like a great man can emerge, but he emerges from a society that produced him, not by accident, not randomly, right? He was created for, produced from some set of conditions that enabled him to rise up and do the things that he did. The off-ramps and everything are important. I wish that there was a book I started by, I'm not going to remember his name, but it's a huge 3-part series on like the Germany in the post World War I, and then leading up through, and then after. I think is it called The Fall of the Third Reich, maybe, by Richard Evans, I think. That sounds right. But a lot of the parts of his book as he's going through Germany is considering the off-ramps. It didn't have to be this way that the society went in this direction, or it didn't have to be this way that when the French troops in the war, it didn't have to be this way. Like, this could have gone on, and considering those. And I think it's important because history oftentimes just feels like train tracks that, the choo-choo train is just riding along and there's nothing you could do for it. And all that to say that historians, if there's any singular man, and a man I hate blaming singular men, but he played a dangerous fucking game, and that was Mitch McConnell when, I don't know how many people are aware of this, but the Senate had absolutely enough votes on the merits to impeach Trump fully, and he said no, and the bullshit reason they gave was that you can't impeach a guy out of office, which doesn't make any fucking sense at all, but it was because McConnell thought that was his gamble. Trump's probably gone, I don't want to eat the electoral unpopularity.
Do you remember what he said?
Which thing? I remember the rationale he gave, that you can't impeach a man who is not out of office. What was the other thing?
We don't have to do it. They'll take care of the son of a bitch for us.
Oh, I didn't even hear that.
This was the famous McConnell behind closed door quote about this, so he said this to the Republican conference. He said, and he was explaining why they didn't need to convict him. And it was because the Democrats would take care of Trump for them. There was no need for them to eat the electoral cost and the political cost of voting for it.
Yeah.
That fucking guy has a lot to answer for.
Yeah. I don't want to speak ill of the recently departed, so I don't want to spend too much time on McConnell, assuming he's. I don't know if he's alive or not.
You're it's very, very funny. We got a picture, a perfectly normal picture, which just happened to have the corner of the Washington Post in it as proof of life.
I just don't know why you would act so. It's like, the example I gave is like you're at a party and you have like a wife or girlfriend and you like post a picture of you at the party and it's like you and a girl next to you and that's it, and it looks like you're at dinner, and then your girlfriend calls, she's like, what the fuck, what's going on or whatever, and it's like, oh no, we're at a party, and then like there are other pictures and there are a ton of people. Everyone's like, why would you post the most guilty looking picture possible? You know? And it's like, here's McConnell, the turtle in his bed alive with and it's just like, God. And the thing that this is
just
the
have
thing.
him call Jonathan Swan.
Sure.
Spend 5 minutes on the
anything.
phone with Jonathan Swan. Jonathan Swan will say in the Axios the next morning, I spoke with Mitch McConnell for 5 minutes and he sounded okay.
Yeah. I feel like Trump literally takes off the CPAP machine and is calling Fox and Friends every morning. This guy sounds like he's barely awake and he's struggling in bed, gasping for breath as the Fox News hosts are trying to cut him off every other line because they don't know when he's going to stop rambling on whatever he's talking about. The thing that drives me the craziest, though, about all of this now, I go back and forth on like, I wish that it would have just been Jack Smith was the president of the United States or whatever. I wish it would have been so much more aggressive than Biden. In one sense, if we do make it back from this, I am glad that we elected Biden, because I do believe that Biden was literally... He was why don't you guys just try acting right and see how, maybe things will get better then. And it's like, okay, well, let's put literally the nicest, least vindictive, I want to be the president of both sides, and I'm not going to sick Merrick Garland on you, and I'm going to let a special counsel investigate me for secret classified documents while the own classified documents case gets killed by Cannon in Florida, and I'm going to allow my son to be infinitely investigated by 52 different judiciary hearing committees while every single Republican on the planet says, I plead the fifth over and over again to every single question. And it's like, and then by the end of all of that, nothing. We got nothing for it. And so now, when conservatives bring up any issue, right, the McConnell thing, and it's like, you guys complained so much about us hiding Biden and hiding his medical conditions. We just found out that both of Trump's ankles are exploding, that McConnell, we don't even know what's happening. It almost seems like he made a deal with the devil and Lindsey Graham was sacrificed to keep this guy alive for a little bit longer. Like, what is happening? Like, what the fuck is even going on in the Republican establishment right now? And it's all like normal.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of internal debate at the Bulwark about this, circa 2021, where, on the one hand, should the Biden administration pursue maximum accountability and most aggressive possible reforms, or should the Biden administration try to heal the country and push forward and just fake it till you make it, right? We're going to treat the Trump years as an aberration. These things happen. Sometimes a country elects an insane person for one term, then they learn their lesson and we just don't speak of it again. And I gotta be honest, I was genuinely torn by this, and it was not obvious to me that one path was clearly the right answer and the other was the wrong one. I think we know what Biden chose. Biden chose to try to put the country back together again. Try to treat the Trump years as an aberration and something which didn't have to be repeated, and that, look, this is like his hokey corn pop. I believe this is who we are. And if it isn't who we are, then we're going to fake it till we make it. It wasn't a crazy thing. It was a perfectly reasonable judgment to make at the time. It was wrong, though. I think we now know that it was wrong. But can you put yourself back in like early 2021? Were you thinking in those terms too about the two roads diverging in the wood for him, or no?
I got embarrassingly, I fell a little bit into one of my biggest fears as a content creator is falling too much into an echo chamber. It's the thing that I'm always petrified of because I see so many other people and I'm like, how can you be so blind to your own biases? So I'm really worried about that. And I got a little bit mind tousled by the Trump derangement syndrome thing. And I thought maybe I'm a little bit too harsh on this guy. And it wasn't until, I don't know, it might have been a year after January 6th, where I had an old friend who was like, don't you think Trump should have deployed the National Guard there? And that was his fault? I was like, was it really his fault? I don't know. And then I went down the rabbit hole of reading the Select Committee report and things that I didn't even, embarrassing, I didn't even know about. I didn't really know how electors work for a state. I don't know. You probably just add up all the, like, I didn't know how any of this shit worked. And then to go through stuff that is just like, I would have imagined you would have to go on a Nicolas Cage Explorer adventure to find the elector slates that were the legally signed elector slates, and these are all just like publicly available. All this stuff is out here, and nobody. So initially I was probably a little bit more forgiving, but now I feel differently. One of the examples, there's a thing that I talk about a lot when people ask me for advice, like interpersonally, when people talk to me and they're frustrated with partners or friends or whatever. People will do this thing, you'll have a parent and it'll be like, my kid he's just so irrational, he just makes all these horrible choices. Like, well, what's going on? It's like, he can't hold down a job, he gets high all the time, and it's just, I don't understand this guy. And it's like, well, what's going on with him? It's like, well, he's staying over here, he's upstairs, and he's so lazy, I got to do his laundry for him, I got to, cooking his meals, this guy's a loser, like, what's going on? I just don't understand him. And it's like, he's acting like a perfectly rational human being. It sounds like the guy gets free video games, free food. He lives at your house. He gets to fuck around all day, and you're rewarding him the entire time for what he would be stupid to do otherwise. Why would you want to go out and get a job? That sucks. He can smoke weed all day, and his mom and dad will take care of him forever. And I kind of launched, at least in my part of the political sphere, this conversation on tit for tat, where I think in some ways we have, in some ways, not to sound ultra woke, but like we do have a biological programming, but it is suited for a particular environment. And we really are guided, I think, a lot more by social stuff than we realize sometimes, even when it comes to things like gendered stuff. I have a musical background. Women are amazing classical pianists. They can play violin. There's no reason why they can't play guitar or drums, but they don't. That's a social thing, right? When you look at like rock bands, it's like 0.01% of all, guitar players are women. That's not a biological thing. That's a social thing. But that social factor there drives like a 99.9 to 0.1% difference in behavior. So all this to say that when I look at conservatives and I look at how they act in 2024, and I look at the constant lies, and I look at all of the collaboration, and I look at all of the rule breaking and the law breaking and everything else, all I think of is coming out of 2021, like, well, of course, why would they not act that way? They should. Look at the immense.
It's a free shot.
Yeah, they're getting so much for it. They get so many rewards for it. And the American memory for political stuff is, I was just about to say 6 months, but I don't even know, 6 weeks, 6 days? I don't know. Like, we have no memory.
Hour and a half.
Yeah. So if we're not going, next time we come in, it has to be heavy accountability. Not even necessarily for the American public, but it has to be that when the next guy is in office and he's doing a thing, he should be thinking, if I fuck around too much here, am I going to get in big trouble for it? That has to be a consideration. And right now on the conservative side, it's not.
So I agree completely. And again, not unreasonable to make the decision Biden made because he was assuming it was an aberration, not a fact of life. We now know it's a fact of life. If there is another Democratic control of the federal government, then I think it's pretty clear that they should attack both maximum accountability, like maximum legal accountability for everybody at every level of the Trump government, and they should be pretty aggressive in pursuing real institutional reforms. And I'm going to get pretty far out there on institutional reforms. What do you think the odds are that even your favorite Democrat would do that? Because I think the odds are like 1 in 10, maybe less. Because what'll happen is you'll get Democrats in there and they'll be like, we got to focus on the future. We got to, don't look backward. We got to, what people care about, they don't care about process. They don't care about this stuff. They care about their wallets and the kitchen table. You know what we need to do? We need to expand healthcare access and do Medicare for all who want it, which, by the way, may be a perfectly good plan. I don't know. I'm not a healthcare policy wonk. But I can tell you that as a political matter, it'll mean like 2 years of fighting. They won't get what they actually want. They'll get marginal improvements, but they'll also get blamed for anything that goes wrong. And it's just a recipe to do this all over again. Because as you said, like, it just tells Republicans, oh, you get free shots. You can make as many authoritarian attempts as you want. and you don't have to worry because you'll never be held accountable for it. So take another one.
I feel like I've watched the Democratic Party learn this lesson over and over again, and I feel like we're doing it right now again, where they have this conversation about like, and even I go back and forth on this, like, it's the economy, stupid. Like, people don't care about social issues, and it's really just about affordability and yada yada yada. I don't think that's true. I think there are social issues that people care a lot about because politicians manage to kick up so much noise about them, and I think that there is a. You don't want to be like mean about it, but like people will care to some extent about the things that you tell them to care about. And this is the thing that conservatives have figured out so well, that when you consider like a concept like the Overton window, I think Democrats look at this as like the Overton window is the furthest extent to which we could ever even message and we can dream perhaps an inch beyond. And the Republicans see the Overton window as like a springboard. And it's like, maybe we can start here and see how the fuck far we can go. And I don't know what we'll message. I would have lost so much money if I was a betting man on Polymarket earlier on trying to predict what conservatives would tolerate, right? Like a new market is open. So today, Trump has adopted the new slogan of a nation of no new wars. What are the chances that we will enter more global conflict than we have in like all of, I think in 1 year, I think he bombed, it was like 8 different countries. I think more than any president in U.S. history. So the issue is that what happens is Democrats will, going back to the media ecosystem thing I said, a Democrat will think, he'll have this idea, but like, I think we should do accountability. And when he has that idea of accountability, he might even go to Fox News and do an interview on it and get thrashed. Or maybe he'll go to Joe Rogan and do a talk on it and get thrashed. Or maybe he'll go to Jake Tapper if he's not writing another book on Biden, and then he'll get thrashed by Jake Tapper, who says, well, the country wants to look forward. Maybe he'll go to Pod Save America. I don't know what the fuck. I'm trying to think of left-wing podcasts that aren't like super out there left-wing. But maybe he'll go to the Bulwark and have a good conversation with Tim Miller, where Tim Miller will be fair but critical. And then that idea will just kind of sit there because it's like, and the American public will look at it like, I don't know, man. That seems like kind of, I'm not sure. And that's it. When the Republican has an idea, they brainstorm and they think about it like, okay, let's accelerate this bad boy. They make all the rounds on all their shows where it is uncritically repeated there. So they have all of that energy from there. And then from there, everything is like accelerated out into other parts of the media ecosystem until the public cares about it. And that's how they message and that's how they do. And they're able to force so much stuff into the public mind with that environment. And I think Democrats, so like for your accountability thing, I agree that there should be accountability, but it has to be everybody is on board. And it's like, this is what we're doing. Yeah. And if it pulls a little bit like at 49% support first, fuck it. Don't worry about it. Push the message hard, like Newsom did with the gerrymandering in California. Push it and see if you can get people to actually accept it and then message on it. Don't wait to see if they feel good about it right now. Make them feel something about it,
Yeah, no, I think that's very valid and right. The other problem for Democrats, which is a good thing for Democrats, is the diversity of their electoral coalition. So, I mean, Democrats are some white working class union members, a lot of white educated professionals, a lot of women, single women, a lot of Hispanics, a lot of African Americans. And what this, it is not a homogenous coalition, right? A lot of Jewish people, a lot of Catholic people, a lot of nuns, people who don't do religion, period. And when you have a networked coalition like that, it's much harder to hold together because everybody has different things that they're interested in. But it means that it's also, you're pretty resistant to a demagogue because it is hard, like they all have different interests, right? Whereas if the Republican coalition is basically white high school educated men. Like that is the majority of the Republican coalition. And they all kind of want the same things. They all come from very similar cultures. And so it's easy for one person to get a lot of power by just catering to one demographic. And I think that is also part of the messaging aspect, which is that it's really big coalition, a lot of disparate interests. And that's That's good. I mean, one of the things which has changed in America, I'm sure you've talked about this before, is the ideological sorting of the parties. And so beginning around 1980, we wound up, I mean, we used to have very ideologically heterodox parties. There were conservative Democrats, conservative Republicans, liberal Republicans. And the if I just told you somebody was a Democrat or Republican, you couldn't automatically know where that politician was on the spectrum. And the party starts sorting them out around 1980. And one of the things that we then see is what are called landslide counties. So these are counties in which the presidential result is 20 points one way or the other. And I don't have this in front of me, so I'm going off memory. Please don't take this as gospel. You have to go look it up. Starting in 1976, I think, the percentage of counties in America that are landslide counties is like 40%, I think. And today it's like 80%. And so you just, as people start sorting out as the parties sort out ideologically, people then start sorting out geographically. And so you wind up with these really homogenous pockets everywhere. And so that now if you're in Salt Lake City, Utah, Salt Lake City is a lot closer to like Brooklyn than it is to, like, I don't know, bumfuck Wyoming or something. And, but by the same token, rural New York State is a lot closer to like Alabama than it is to Brooklyn too. And so all of this stuff, this is why I say, I mean, we just have all these cross pressures that are, I don't know if they're new in the history of the country, because I don't know all of American history that well, but they're new in like the age of modern politics. They're new in the post-television age, and I don't know, man. I'm not super optimistic that this all goes back together again.
Yeah. I mean, I share the feeling. I have to have some level of optimism because I feel like you have to. Otherwise, geez, what a depressing, especially to exist in media. Do you ever play, or have you ever played any video games growing up or anything? Or
yeah, not that old, man.
Not that. Well, I don't know if you played a lot or not at all, or
I was so. You don't need my full gaming history, but like I remember buying my first Super Nintendo Entertainment System and being very excited with my SNES. And I all the way through played a lot of Sid Meier's Civilization through college, did a little bit of World of Warcraft, MMORPG stuff. And, my kids have a Switch too. I got a couple pinball machines here in my office. I actually have a custom gaming cabinet being made for me.
Jeez. Wow. All right. Okay, so lots of video games.
A little bit of a game, yeah.
Okay.
But not like a League of Legends guy.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? So I'm not sure if that counts.
The worst types
so
of
I can't.
games.
Am I really a gamer if I don't do first person shooter type shit?
It depends on if you've ever broken a gaming accessory before, or peripheral or whatever.
No, because I bought that stuff with my own money. I was always really, really. Whereas my best friend, who from second grade, who's still my best friend today. He was like a kind of a rich kid, not a really rich kid, but within the scale of New Jersey suburban worlds, he counted as a rich kid. And he would get so mad and would break his like Atari controllers, and then he would always tell his mom like it's defective, and his mom was always like, "Oh, that's terrible. I'll get a new one."
It came with that massive crack right down the middle. That's insane. Yeah, and all the tape all over it. One thing I think. Again, I try to analyze like the whole thing, because sometimes if you look at just the end, you miss stuff that's happening. Right. There's my background is professional. There's a game called StarCraft or whatever. You don't really know that. I guess I don't know why I went on that.
Oh, StarCraft! People talk about StarCraft. Right? It's a spreadsheet game.
I guess depends on. If you've only played Atari games, I guess to you everything is a spreadsheet on a computer. So yeah, okay.
I'm kidding.
It's not Pac-Man. Okay, all right. There is I use this concept of like the Democratic Party is always defending against the other side. And if you're defending, the best that you can do is hold ground. You're never advancing. You're only holding. At best, that's a perfect defense. Otherwise, you're losing ground. And when you're attacking, sometimes there are strategies in games or whatever. When you're attacking all the time, you're not attacking to win. You could win, but when you're attacking, one, you're not getting attacked. And two, sometimes by doing the attack, you can open up like other opportunities that you don't even see
Didn't even know were
exist.
there.
Yeah. But those other opportunities, you can't even see them if you're not already kind of assuming an aggressive posture. And somebody in a defensive posture would never even see those aggressive opportunities because they'd be too scared to even move their army outside of their base. And they're like, oh, I have to be here to defend. And there are some things where sometimes I almost wish what it would look like if like somebody in Congress was to, if the Democrats could get enough people to pass a bill or to have like, 150 plus people ready to pass a bill saying that they want Donald Trump to have to apologize on national TV for scamming the American public with cryptocurrency. I don't know, something dumb like this. So attach it to a bill. And I don't know if it would necessarily pass or not, but it would be interesting to hear the Republican Party have to contend with the fact that Donald Trump has made over $1 billion with crypto, and to at least have to like discuss that. And the Republican Party gets away so much with always being on the attack that they never have to really discuss anything. They are never held to account for anything. I joke a lot with my audience because there's a lot of my background for politics is I'm like the internet debater guy. That's what a lot of the stuff I've done in the past is. And there are a lot of like strategies that I would complain about when I'm arguing with people that I've noticed the Republican Party has just adopted. One of the most unbeatable strategies is the I haven't heard of that. Somebody would bring up something about Hunter Biden and they would know every forum, every possible thing relating to his taxes and everything else. And I'd be like, did you know that like Roger Stone was in direct contact with the hacker that breached the DCCC? And like, I'm not really sure. Roger Stone or Guccifer, is that the same as a, like they'd have no knowledge of it. And it's like, oh, I guess we just can't talk about it. And you see Mike Johnson doing this today where Trump will just do the most outlandish stuff. And apparently Mike Johnson just hasn't ever heard about it. Yeah, I haven't seen that. I didn't know he said that.
I'm so sorry.
And the Republicans, because the Democrats are always so defensive, sometimes I wish, I'm going back to your idea of like we should prosecute them. If we push for it, at least we get to hear them have to defend it, because right now there are just so many things that are given. I think because Democrats want to be not conciliatory, but they want to be reasonable and fair-minded and self-critical. There are so many truisms that just reverberate around this country that just drive me insane. When I argue with anybody, when I hear people like, why do Republicans get this credit for not spending as much? Right? Even today, I think, even a poll I saw a week ago, I think Republicans are still trusted more with the economy than Democrats. In my lifetime, that's never been true. Why do we believe this? Not fiscally, definitely not economically.
It's vestigial cultural memory. It's fucking insane.
Yeah, but I never hear Democrats. It seems like they're afraid to fight on like almost any point ever. And then there are just things that I feel like I've radically morphed how I viewed a lot of these things. There are things like culturally, socially, and then politically that we kind of do where we talk about these things that we do as like responsibilities to be burdened. Like we talk about like diversity and like including people, and it's like, this is just a thing, guys, and we got to be nice to the minorities and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, we've looked at like racially pure societies that are like hell-bent on only the best and the whatever, and these guys, they die in a generation. They suck. These countries don't succeed. And the soyest, most DEI, affirmative action, multicultural, whatever, how many years have you heard? I've heard how many times that China's economy, the GDP is just about to take over America's GDP. And despite all of our mistakes and everything else, it's still, they're not even close. Like the United States is one of the most diverse countries in the world in terms of everybody that we have, and we have managed to do so much with it. But every time Democrats talk about like a positive on their end, it feels like we're very reluctant to like aggressively market on it. And all of it comes off as like a little bit like, kind of like finger waving, like you got to do this, and then we let the Republicans get away with so many myths or whatever. People look at me crazy, but I'll have the argument with anybody. If you wanted to get an impartial judge on who has more evidence for their senility, like Trump 2 or Biden, I would say Trump 1,000,000%. Biden had an abysmal debate performance, absolutely. Trump didn't debate anybody in his primaries, and after his one debate with Kamala, he said he didn't want to do another one. But they're just they get away with all this. Why is Trump called the deal maker? Where are the 100 deals in 100 days?
He wrote a book about it, so it must be true.
Yeah, it's just, why do they get away with it? It drives me crazy.
Because again, it's because all of that is priced in somehow in the minds of the public, right? The public's like, well, yeah, but he just says that. Mm-hmm. He's, you can't take that seriously, right? It's the clown nose on, clown nose off. And, whatever Trump says that you don't like, you can just say, well, literally not seriously, or vice versa. And with the other side, it's, well, can you believe that Democrat X said this? I mean, I don't know what to do about it. Do you have, speaking of radical reforms and accountability, do you have like a wish list for if we ever go to the good place?
I kind of do, but I usually push back against it. There's
Tell
a
me
more
more.
macro concept, but like just to not get too far into it. The example I always use is that if you're playing Monopoly with a bunch of friends, and in the middle of the game somebody lands on your boardwalk, and then he doesn't have the money to pay, so he takes out a knife and he stabs you. Your conversation is not going to be, we need to ban knives and maybe even guns like the next time we play Monopoly. It's going to be, this guy is not playing by the rule, where this guy's not going to join us on our next Monopoly. He's never playing Monopoly with us again. And so there are things that I would like to see changed structurally in the United States, but people need to look at it as like a perspective, like our institutions would function better if they were to change in this way, but it wouldn't have prevented where we're at now. The most crystallized example of this I can think of is when they amended the Electoral Count Act after the January 1st stuff, or the January 6th stuff. If you read any of the Chesborough stuff, any of the Eastman stuff, they knew they were breaking the law. They knew the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
They don't care what the law says. That's why anytime a conservative says constitutional, that's a code word for break the law, because we know that we're going to hope that our Supreme Court backs us. And they have 2 free votes there right now, so they probably would. So there are changes that I would definitely like to see. A whole host of them. I think that I do believe that state representation is important. So like conceptually, I get things like the Senate, but we have the Senate for the Senate. Do we need the Senate also for the electoral votes for the President of the United States? Do we need land to be represented there? Do we need the House to be slightly unbalanced, or maybe we should expand the number of seats? Like, it can't be that rural peoples have an advantage structurally at every single part of our government. Like, I think the Senate is there and it protects the state interest, and that's enough. Obviously, Supreme Court, I think the people should be term limited. I feel like we should have more justices. I thought it was cool when they used to ride circuit and you could get justices that were ruling in circuit decisions. So they just you get more info from them and everything. Term limits, I think, are good. I like term limits not because they should be term limited, but I like the idea that we don't play like the wacky, crazy fucking lottery game of, is my president going to get 0 Supreme Court picks or 4? I think that's fucking crazy.
Yep.
There's a whole bunch of stuff like that. I guess, like, I mean, conceptually, I like the filibuster, but at this point, if you had like the parliamentary thing that I don't think anybody understands, where it's like, man, this legislation would be really hard to pass at 60 votes, but like, if I can kind of sort of make a compelling argument for why it's just like a budget thing, I guess I can do it with 51. I don't know what the fuck, that's just, I don't know. So yeah, there are definitely structural things that I think are worth looking at that would make it so we have like a better, stronger system, but it won't save us from a Republican Party right now that is without accountability, because they'll break whatever rule. Like the best example I can think of is the Lindsey Halligan appointment in, I don't even remember which district it was in, but there was a rule that it can only,
District of Virginia.
Yeah, you can only have them for 90 days, I think, and then the district court gets to decide. And then Pam Bondi was a genius, and she was like, well, it says 90 days. Well, once she's gone, I could put her in for another 90 days. And they're like, no. And she's like, yeah. And it's like, if that's how you're going to read every rule and every law, like there's no hope for those people, you know?
Let me ask you another question. So this is, again, a subject of some debate between myself and my colleagues. What percentage of Republican voters do you think want the authoritarianism? Like, so for them, the authoritarianism isn't something they have to look past because they like the policies or because they're team players or something. But when they look at Trump, the thing they like about him is that he will hurt their enemies and he will accumulate more power and move us towards a one-party state.
I hate seriously considering this question because I just like to scream at people all day. In my mind, this question is like, why did this relationship end between the man and the woman? And, well, the man cheated, and that's why it ended. Well, the woman wouldn't fuck him for 2 years. Oh, then it's her fault. Well, the guy didn't take showers. Oh, well, I guess it's his fault. Well, it's like, I don't know, who's the fault? So when you ask me that question, on its rawest level, I would say of Republican voters, 75% maybe plus would be okay with some form of like authoritarian stuff. But I think that opinion and that perspective is heavily influenced by them believing that the other side has a vitriol for them and is engaged in their own authoritarian stuff. And at that point, it's like a survival question. As somebody that grew up hardcore conservative, Like I listened, every day to your Buck Sextons, your Michael Savages, and your Rush Limbaughs, and every time there was a new Democratic thing, it was like green energy. This is how the Democrats want to control what car you drive. This is when they want to shut off your air conditioner. This is how they want to destroy your life and control every part of it and take over everything and force your kids to all be gay and trans and whatever else. And if you legitimately believe that, as silly as it might seem, if you legitimately believe that, well, fuck, if I don't have my authoritarian leader, they're going to bring in the drag queens and they're going to trans my kid and he's going to pull up with a Prius and my life is going to be over because we accepted FEMA funds for a disaster 2 years ago and now Biden FEMA agents are coming to inject us all with the COVID vaccines forever. And it's on a quick real life example of that, oh my God, that flooding that happened in Kerr County in Texas, we went back and we were watching, I think it might have been several years earlier, there were it was like $3 to $6 million of funds were sitting in a bank account, and they were having these city meetings.
For the warnings, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah, it could have been used for that, but every person that was coming up and speaking to like the district or city panel or whatever of the elected officials was talking about how we can't use this money. As soon as you accept FEMA funds, they can take our homes, they can force us to get vaccinated, and this is a small county. $5 million is a lot of money for these guys. So yeah, so my answer is it's a high percentage, but harkening back to what you said in the beginning, not because I don't think Republicans are like fundamentally evil, terrible people, but they live in an environment where they really do think that the left has basically operated on this level forever. And so why shouldn't they do the same?
Interesting.
Or it was American Rescue Plan funds, not FEMA funds, sorry. They did do the FEMA funds thing, though, for Carolinas. I remember there were people saying that if you accepted FEMA funds, Biden would take your house. But yeah, why? Where are you guys at that? Or how do you engage with that question? I have to think of it this way, by the way, because otherwise Republicans are just evil people. But yeah. Sorry.
Well, here's my, I mean, so I am maybe more fatalistic than you are on this. So I think the number is probably lower, maybe even significantly lower. Like maybe it's only like 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 Republican voters who have decided that actually they're kind of down with authoritarianism. My concern is that that's a lot of people. And I don't know that a liberal democracy is sustainable in the long run if you've got, so if let's just say it's 1/3 of Republican voters are 1/3 of the country. So if you have 1/9 of the country that is no longer interested in liberal democracy and liberal society and instead wants totalitarianism, I think the odds are pretty good that eventually they're going to get it, right? I mean, there were like, 25,000 Bolsheviks, right? It's not like the entire Russian countryside was full of people who were committed Marxist-Leninists. You can move a lot of the world around you with a mass of people that big. And I don't think, maybe that's not true. We clearly have had a large percentage of Americans who were invested in totalitarianism. We know this because of slavery, the Civil War, and then Jim Crow, right? I mean, they were just objectively, there was a large proportion of America who wanted a form of authoritarianism and did not like liberal democracy. And then we sort of believe that went away, like by the time you have the Civil Rights Act. So let's just say roughly from 1975 through like 2015. And, but maybe it didn't go away, right? Maybe that portion of American political life was dormant for that period. And so the thing which has haunted me a lot is that the political context of conservatism in which I sort of came up through the world, I had thought was like the end point of conservatism in America, right? Like this is we had reached this sort of pure Burkean, very intellectual. This is, the conservatism that I was seeing was the party of Lincoln and Burke, and it was all about, free thought and liberalism in the small L way. But maybe that was actually just an aberration, right? That's a historical aberration. And the real American conservatism was all the stuff that existed like shortly before I was born. And we're reverting to that mean. Something to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a hard
This is
one.
what I do.
Yeah.
I'm just a ray of sunshine.
Just
man.
a ray of
I
sunshine.
show up on people's streams, and I
Better than being a both sideser, at least. Don't be a
hate
both
those
sideser.
people.
Oh my
I hate
goodness.
those people.
I think that I guess at the end of the day, the reason why I fixate on the media stuff so much is at a very abstract level. When I look at like the ontology of a human being, I think that there are things that we all consider good and there are things that we all consider bad, and that generally, in order to get people, I'm generalizing a lot, in order to get people to believe in or to do bad things, you have to obscure something from them. Like, I fully admit, I am a meat eater, but I genuinely believe that if every person had to watch a 30-second video of like a slaughterhouse before they ate or something, even for one day, I think you'd probably have like anywhere from 5 to 30% of society might go vegan, depending on how many times you make them watch those videos. I just think that the more stuff that you're able to put between a person and the bad, as we would agree, what is happening, then the harder it is for them to to say that that is like a bad thing, I guess. And because our world today is so international, a lot of things that we talk about, you never really get to verify or come in contact with. Like if I started a cult of balcony jumpers who I, claim that we could fly, that cult lasts for after the first or second jump, maybe, for the true believers. They might last, to see the second jump. And then that cult is gone. But if I have a cult that tells you that 40 million illegal immigrants came in under Biden, I don't know, was it 1 million or 100,000 or 100 million? I don't know. You don't know at the end of the day. And there are so many lies that you never actually have to pay back. Like generally as you lie and you accumulate this deceitful debt, at some point you kind of have to cash in. And I'm like, oh, okay, shit's catching up with me. But one thing that really bothers me is I feel like in 10 or 20 years, you're going to have kids coming home from school and their parents are going to be telling them that like what you're learning about the 2020 elections isn't true. That was a contested election. Or maybe they'll even be teaching that in schools. I don't know, that it's a contested election. And as long as we are having all of these systems, and I think the systems have gotten more sophisticated a bit because we become more nationalized. You're not seeing what's going on in your neighborhood. It's what's all around the world because the internet is bringing everything to you. It's just harder to know. My ex-wife is Swedish. It was so funny going back and forth, between Stockholm and southern Sweden, and then coming back to the United States and hearing about Sweden is on fire, Malmo is burning down, and it's like, where? What the fuck is it? Like, is there crime and shit? For sure, related to some immigration stuff, absolutely. But holy Christ, people think it's a war zone, and that's a problem.
It's bad.
Yeah.
Listen, I think I got to jump.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Am I
Wait,
jamming up by leaving?
Can I ask you one question? Just because you asked me, what is the one or two, or give me the top 3 big reforms that you think you want to see for government stuff?
So you got to expand the Supreme Court, because if you don't expand the Supreme Court, nothing else you do will withstand scrutiny.
Sure.
Because the Supreme Court is partisan.
Okay.
Irrespective of the fact that it ought to be expanded for like other reasons, just as if you're trying to reform the system, the first thing you have to do is reform the court.
Mm-hmm.
You have to add states. There's just no way around it. And the deployment of National Guard to Washington, D.C. gives you the perfect rationale for it. The citizens of Washington, D.C., because they were not a state, were threatened by the United States military. They must be given statehood in order to protect the citizens of D.C. in the future from other presidents.
Mm-hmm.
Bam. Right? I think it should be absolutely open and should be part of the discussion as to whether other U.S. territories become states. The obvious one is Puerto Rico, but they have to decide whether they want to be a state. You can't make them become a state.
And Canada and Greenland too, of course, right?
Canada, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think House expansion is something that ought to be like, this is a place where the Overton window really needs to be moved by Democrats. And I have really come around on the idea of House expansion, and you're not going to get it in 2029 or 2031 or whatever. But this needs to be a part of the long-term plan, because it's one of the only ways you fight gerrymandering, and it's one of the only ways to begin lowering that structural penalty that urbanized populations wind up facing. And And then after that, like I have a lot of thoughts about like nationalizing SpaceX, which I think it was an enormous, enormous mistake. And I say this irrespective of Elon Musk
okay.
and his politics. Enormous mistake to privatize control of the gravity well, like just as a matter of national security. Should never have been done. And I think, I would think the American people have learned that by now. Certainly the American military has learned that by now, I think. And I don't know, man, like I get pretty far out into like oligarchy stuff. Like I would be very, very antitrust. I do not like the idea that a guy who owns a bunch of tech infrastructure also owns CBS News and CNN and TikTok. Don't love that. And I think about wealth taxes, and you can't really tax wealth. What you have to do is you have to monkey around with capital gains in order to do an actual wealth tax. But I think about billionaires, not in terms of fairness, but in like antitrust terms, that there is some number of wealth at which a person stops having the ability to act like a citizen and begins acting like a non-state actor, And I don't know if that number is $200 billion or $500 billion, but there's a level at which it does become a category difference.
Yeah.
And it's dangerous to the state. Like the state can't allow, in the same way the state can't allow somebody to mint their own currency, they just can't allow that level of wealth concentration. And I am interested in that stuff too. And then there's all a bunch of like Schedule F stuff. Like, can you depoliticize the government? Like this is one of the things can you imagine that John Ossoff, I always mess that up. John Ossoff is inaugurated as president, and the first thing is like, well, is he going to fire Kash Patel? Well, I don't know. Kash Patel was appointed to a 10-year term, and that's one of the norms. I thought John Ossoff and the Democrats said that they wanted to adhere to norms and traditions, and well, this would make him just as bad as Trump if he fired Kash Patel. You can fucking see this conversation, right?
It will happen.
And so, like a lot of conversations are going to happen around trying to understand how do you reestablish norms? Because one of the things I do believe pretty strongly is that you can't legislate everything.
Yes.
Right. And this is like, once you start drawing lines, you are giving people permission to do lots of bad things right up to the line. And this is like the function of norms. The function of norms is having amorphous guidelines that mostly keep everybody in check. And I do not have any sense as to how to return to that world.
Okay. 2 quick things, and then I'll let you go. Yeah. Somebody brought this up in chat. I had a friend, not even that political, brought up this idea. I love this idea. My one big thing to be easy to do is anytime an elected official or a member of the government, so cabinet, whatever, or a member of the executive branch, whatever, anytime they're talking on the news, they're sworn in first. So if they lie about something, they can be charged with perjury.
Oh, I love
100%.
that.
I love that idea.
I love that idea.
Absolutely.
Andrew Weissman has a book coming out. I haven't read it yet, so I don't know this is what he said. I've only heard him talk about it. But other countries like France and Brazil have laws for politicians about lying about election results. And I'm interested. I don't think that could withstand judicial scrutiny because of the First Amendment, but like I'm listening. It is. If it seems weird to me that it is illegal for the CEO of a company to lie about like their earnings, right? Because that you can then prosecute them under criminal fraud statutes. But it's not illegal for the president of the United States to lie about an election being stolen.
Yeah,
that seems bizarre to me.
I can't tell you that you can go to the polling place a day early or a day late. I can't lie about anything related to where to vote. That is illegal. Yeah. There was that, and then the second thing, we didn't talk about this, but I'll just plant this in your mind. I imagine you already agree, kind of. But one thing that the Democrats can do if they message better is we have to, at some point, or I say we as in me and my Democratic group, have to be able to say no when there are wacky, crazy things happening on the left. And sometimes I think that we get associated with a lot of the crazier stuff on the far left, not because any amount of us believe it, but just because there's no public voice saying, I think the Mao costume is a bit much, or I think that the 5-year-old trans athletes probably not. We probably don't need to have this like as a matter of policy for the party. And yeah, I think the Democrats need to do a better job at being able to push back against that too. But
I fully agree. I would say though, one of my senses, you could tell me if I'm wrong or not, is that when you get out to like the far left, by which we're talking about like the Mao people, like the tankies. I mean, are they ever likely to vote Democrat? Right, unless like if the Democrat is a Joe Biden, like it does not seem to me, just as a political science matter, that they did show up for Joe Biden or Kamala Harris.
Yeah,
and don't we have some evidence that a bunch of those people became Trump voters,
or don't vote, or because a lot
or
of them
don't right, they don't vote or they become Trump voters. This is like the horseshoe is kind of real, and so I don't know, like I have no fucking patience for the tankies. Yeah, but maybe this is because I'm a Cold War baby. But
Sure.
I'm like, Russia was fucking bad.
And it's bad. It's bad still today.
Bad. Liquidating the kulaks was bad.
Yeah. Okay.
So, Cultural Revolution, bad. Killing all the sparrows, bad.
True. So. And well, thank you so much for joining us. Please stay based. We love you and Sarah and Tim, and
It was very nice of you to have me. Thanks, man. You took my streaming cherry.
Oh, well,
I gave it to you.
Well, thank you so much. I'll make sure Tim knows that. So, thanks a lot.
See you, man.
Yeah, have a good one. Bye.